The Esquilier Empire is known for many things. Winning wars is one of those things. Yet for a long time it had been unable to subdue its enemies, the Shadate Principality. Generations came and went, unable to achieve the dream, until Margrave and his son Eric stepped in. They were able to subdue their foe, marking their surrender with a document which they submit to their king. On the outside, the man looks like he is thinking of the best way to thank them for achieving this feat, but everything gets dark when he asks if Eric is of marriageable age now. His father reluctantly agrees, wondering what the Emperor is hiding behind his sinister smile. He hopes for the best until the Emperor talks about giving his sister's hand in marriage. Already he knows this isn't a negotiation, it's a decree, but that isn't his problem. His problem is that the lady in question is the hidden princess no one has ever set eyes on, and some presume dead. He can't believe that kind of person has been forced upon his son, but that's not the worst part of this. The worst part is the lady herself and the condition she is in. The knights present are at a loss for words, yet the Emperor casually introduces her as his younger sister, Miessa Esquilier. He claims she is shy, but when she falls to the floor, it's clear there's more going on with her than he is willing to share. He does cover it up, though, claiming she is merely unwell, a lie Margrave sees through. Still, he thanks the Emperor for honoring his family with royalty. Deep down, he can't believe this person qualifies to be called a princess. But Eric doesn't seem to mind. He announces his acceptance too and strolls over to her to introduce himself. He does this without knowing she'd react harshly, like a cornered animal, to be precise, and when she does, he pays no attention to her behavior. Her brother, on the other hand, calls her to him, before apologizing for her behavior. Then he asks her to apologize too, but all she does is bark. Margrave is pissed. Nevertheless, on his way home, like he was at the palace, he stays silent too, while thinking about how in the long war they fought, his family, the Cladnies, snagged the win for the Empire. He is aware that the Emperor arranged this marriage because for some reason he isn't pleased, making him even angrier. His silence eventually fades when he gets home, and it is replaced with loud cries as he complains about his son getting a foolish princess as payment for their unwavering loyalty. You'd expect Eric to be bothered too, but the man doesn't have a care in the world for his father's complaints. They all know they are cornered as the wedding is inevitable. It's unwanted, no doubt, but he is willing to step up as the heir of the Cladni house. It's his duty, isn't it? He eats peacefully with that in mind, while his father continues to rage. Amberic, Eric's cousin during his uncle's episode, gets curious to know what happens with Eric's previous engagement with the Crispin family. He is told that it has been nullified because of the Tyrant King's reckless declaration. This was to be expected nonetheless. What Margrave doesn't expect, however, is the calmness of his wife at a time like this. He knew Thalisa as someone who didn't hide her opinions, but her silence makes it look like she has also accepted their fate. In truth, she hasn't. She is just busy recalling the conversation she had earlier on with Miessa's maids. They told her that Eric was going to share a room with Miessa and take care of the odd princess personally. Recounting that annoys her again, and she chugs down wine knowing there is nothing she can do about it. Still, amidst the resentment and bitterness, Eric remains unchanged. He stays that way even on the day of the wedding. Unlike the overjoyed citizens, the news of the war hero getting married to the noble princess was what they needed to smile after a long war. They, like everyone unaware of the truth, see the union as a fairy tale, but it's far from that. Yet the wedding proceeds as planned, with a packed crowd of nobles and citizens of the Empire trooping into the wedding hall. Everyone wants to see the princess who has been hidden all her life, wondering what she looks like. They have a lot to say based on the rumors, but pipe down upon the arrival of Lord Margrave and his wife Thalisa. The man just wants to get out of the circus show, but he isn't allowed to do that in peace because at the door, the man is informed about the Emperor not being able to grace the wedding, while his sister arrives safely. Margrave takes his absence as another spit on the face, though he lets it slide and allows the wedding to continue as planned. Before the eyes of all, Eric takes his place and the air is thick while they wait anxiously for the princess to arrive. As the doors open and she walks in with the assistance of her maids, everyone can tell something is wrong. They shuffle around suggestions of her being either drunk or unwell, mostly because she can't walk properly. Yet everyone leaves their suspicions as whispers, watching the wedding continue until the end. They then head home afterwards, continuing with their lives, while Eric gets ready for his first night with his wife. Her maids, the same women who spoke to his mother on how she should be handled, instruct him not to harm her in any way while he handles his marital duties. By morning, they plan to get proof that he did the necessary, and he is okay with that. It's all about performing his duty, after all, so he doesn't hesitate to make the first move. He is stopped, however, by the empty bottles of sedatives by her bedside. From their size, he estimates that such an amount of sedatives can bring down a horse. To use that amount on a human being on the verge of starvation was inhumane to him. Even prisoners of enemy countries were not treated so badly. Initially, he couldn't think of anyone who would be that ruthless when dealing with royalty, until he realized that it must have been the Emperor who gave the instructions. He grits his teeth at the thought and cancels all plans of consummation instantly. He might get to that another day, But for today, he looks to help the poor princess. Quickly and gently, Eric takes off Misa's shackles, but in the process, he realizes that he has to do more than that, given that if he leaves her the way she is, it might be bad for them. He softly helps her under the covers and tells her about himself, even though it looks like she isn't listening. He tells her his age, position, and the story of the younger sister he lost to an accident. Aside from her, he has no other siblings, which is sad. The young man didn't stop there. He willingly told her about how he lived at the border due to the war with the Shidate Principality, and even wanted to tell her about their wedding, but couldn't tell how much she understood. He knows it's best she understands the position she is in, although he ends up deciding to do that after he lets her know she has frostbite because of winter's harshness. He prescribes warmth as a cure for her, only to realize that she has fallen asleep. He thinks she is better since her skin color has improved and is convinced she'll be okay by the time she wakes up, but he needs to get proof of consummation. Fortunately for Eric, he finds his way around that and submits his proof to one maid who will take it to the priest for confirmation. The other one intends to help Misa get dressed, but he stops her, claiming she hasn't gotten out of bed yet. They believe him and decide to let her rest, unaware that he lied to them. She is wide awake. It's obvious when he walks into the room to find her nibbling on his jacket. Aware that doing something like that might not be healthy, Eric takes the coat and offers her a loaf of bread, which she seems to like. Somehow watching her eat makes him happy. His kindness is already starting to look like more than duty, and he continues with it when later in the day he takes her to meet with his parents. To greet them after the wedding, and the only thing on Margrave's mind is confusion about how he ended up in this situation. Since he isn't in private, he tries to play it cool by inviting the couple in, but it gets hard to continue playing cool when Misa attempts to climb the bear statue that represents the Cladney house. She is stopped immediately by Eric, but that doesn't stop Margrave from drowning in shame. He flicks his tongue in rage and leaves, while Misa's maids mockingly rush to take her from Eric. They advise him to leave her with them and go in to rest, but he refuses, dismissing them. The maids waste no time leaving, and Thalisa quietly watches her son assign the Cladney servants to take good care of Misa, since she has become a member of their family. He leaves with the servants and his bride, returning with her for dinner, where he again asks her maids to stand down. It seems he doesn't trust them with her. If he did, he wouldn't suggest handling her meals by himself, even after they warn him that she has problems with eating, but he waves their warnings aside when he hears she eats everything. Eagerly, he lets her have her first bite, but she ends up spitting it on his face and going berserk. The maids, watching from a safe distance, try their best to hold back their laughs. It isn't easy, but they manage to do it, standing there when Eric orders his servants to prepare to clean up. For some minutes, he leaves the table with Misa and comes back after he has put her in bed. By then, it's just his parents, who are angrier than they were at the start. With sign language, Lord Margrave demands to know how long they have to keep Misa alive. He's fed up, so he wants her terminated. Truly, Thalisa would like the same, but she is sure that their lives are tied to the life of the princess. If she dies, they die, although it doesn't look like Eric wants her unalive. Let's take a little history lesson on the Escalier Empire, shall we? So the empire is made up of many noble families, 3 of which make up the 3 columns. At the top is the Salachese family, known by their snake crest and their involvement in keeping the empire's internal stability. Following closely is the Crispin family, who control the internal security of the empire and are represented by a deer crest. Lastly, Eric's family, the Cladney family, is in charge of the external safety of the empire, and we all know of their infamous bear crest. The 3 families had the most hands in the military, power, and security of the kingdom. The previous emperor, to maintain some sort of balance, got a wife from each family. The first queen was the daughter of the Duke of Salachese, and mother to the current tyrant Vermalik II. Vermalik boldly refused to fulfill his duties as the king, but that wasn't the worst of his sins. The sin that gets that award would be him causing the annihilation of his mother's people, the House of Salachese, under the guise of restoring royal power. As for the remaining families, he oppressed them for no reason, forcing them to come together and start plans for a rebellion. To their detriment, their plan didn't go as planned, with the rebellion falling apart and Vermalik working in the shadows to make sure the people were on his side and the opposition fell. He left a lot of bodies on his dirty trail to asserting dominance, but pinning a deadbeat sister on his son, Margrave hates the most. He thinks the lady isn't mentally stable, which is true, but Thalisa defends her, asserting that she heard the child was normal at birth, and for some time in her life. She is rumored to have gotten paralyzed after witnessing so much death in the empire, something that she finds pitiful. Margrave is annoyed that his wife is sympathizing with that girl. He thinks he deserves sympathy, especially because there are talks of Eric's cousin Ambric taking his place as heir of the family to help them inherit the family from the Crispin Marquess. He tries to tell his son that this new development has just put his position in a tight spot, all because of his crazy wife. Still, he says nothing. His mother, searching for a new ladder out of the hole they are in, asks her husband for a status report on Vermalik's cousin, Prince Hagael. According to Margrave, the man is too weak-hearted. There was a bump in their plans one time, and he has been cold ever since. This man, aside from the princess and Vermalik, is the only surviving member of the royal family, He was a necessary piece in their takeover, but he suddenly became crippled due to an accident he suffered. The cause of the accident, we can all guess, but since then he has lived a secluded life. This annoys Margrave the more. He storms out, pissed that he just can't find a way out of this. For Eric, it's like his father can't even win against himself right now. His mother, seemingly calm right now, uses his father's absence as her chance to have a little chat with him. She first asks him what he thinks about the development so far, and he tells her that he understands that they plan to join the Crispin family and the Chladni family together through marriage. The Emperor didn't know this before, but now that he does, a formal marriage ceremony would draw too much attention to the plan. Since they do not know who is next in line for the Escalier throne, they are trying to play it safe on the sides they pick. They also don't want to offend the king. In other words, it'll take a while to convince them to support a union between a man of the Chladni family and the Crispin Marquess, meaning she'll be unmarried for a while? But how long can she stay unmarried? She didn't think that far. Surprisingly, thinking Eric's hardened and sharpened mind comes from the time he spent on the battlefield. She acknowledges how sharp he is when it comes to political matters, because of battlefield experience, and understands that he is trying to say Miesa is the only hitch in their plans. She thinks he is suggesting they kill her, to remove her from the equation. But Eric doesn't look like he fully agrees with that. For now, he suggests they watch the situation surrounding her. She agrees, and adds that regardless of what the maids may think, he shouldn't show Miesa any affection. But Lisa believes it might be a problem with their plans later on. Plus, if they end up needing to kill her, his affection might be a problem. For the poor girl's sake, his mother advises that he doesn't confuse her with kindness. For some reason, Eric flinches at his mother's conclusion, thinking about it later during his stroll through the halls. He is not okay with his mother wanting to eliminate Misa, and looks back on the little time they've spent together. It hasn't been much, but he is attached to her. It's certainly more than duty now, but his mind goes from his mother to the maids and their gossiping, which he is fortunate to run into. From the way they sound, he can sense some level of harshness from them towards his wife as they try to get her to sleep, but he doesn't step in until they start talking about his family. He then dismisses them, permitting them to come the following morning to take care of Misa. It's obvious that he doesn't trust them, from how often he keeps dismissing them, and they know it, yet all they can do is resent him while they obey his orders. When alone with Misa, Eric notices that she is currently in a good mood. He watches her play with her hair for a bit before approaching her and telling her that she is currently in the Chladni capital mansion. He informs her that she'll be shuttling to and fro, from here to her territory and back a lot. Since she'll be traveling a lot to this place a lot, he wants to be sure she likes it. In the process of trying to figure out her mood, he notices that they hadn't made eye contact for a while. Away from that, he realizes she always has one style of clothes on, plain, damp, and unbefitting for a princess. They look more or less like a prison uniform. As he observes her, Eric ends up overstaring. Misa accidentally catches him, and they end up staring at each other for a second too long. During this time, he notices how beautiful she is, only for her to ruin the moment by blowing raspberries at him. By doing this, she bathes him in saliva, waking him up from the little trance he was in. Calmly, Eric wipes his face and guides her against acting so rudely, after which he admonishes her to rest, promising to join her when he is done handling work. Later in the night, they are both in bed fast asleep until a storm wakes Misa up. She is frightened by the storm, waking up moody because of the many thundering sounds she had to endure. Watching her as he tries to help her have breakfast, Eric notices she is down and asks her about her night. He fears she experienced discomfort while sleeping, guessing it was caused by the difference in bed, but she barely responds. It's visible that she looked better last night when they went to bed than she does now, and her appetite is low. For her good, he advises her to eat something to stay energized, even if she doesn't feel like it. It looks like she understood him the moment she reaches into the bowl of pottage and helps herself with some, but it wasn't her appetite that was the problem. It was her unfamiliarity with spoons. She prefers using her hand, which he doesn't advise against. One day turns to months in the Chladni mansion being Maesa's new home, and Eric noticed it had changed subtly since their marriage. In the training grounds where his knights are, though they act respectful on the outside, deep down he knows everyone has something to say. It's written on their faces, their intention to speak up as well as the thick atmosphere to back it up. It is so tight that everyone stops training until he reminds them they aren't done for the day. Hearing his order, they continue with training, and he goes back to thinking about the situation at hand. Within his family, his father now eats alone because he is unhappy with Misa's unruly eating habits. His mother has tried to tell him to keep his emotions in check, but Margrave has refused to listen. Even their subordinates look confused concerning the matter, yet no one has dared to openly show dissatisfaction concerning the matter. Eric stays firm, as always, supervising training and eventually joining in before he retires to the mansion. There, the butler informs him that his wife had been up and down the mansion, eventually ending up in the maid's workroom again. He can't believe she went there today as well, but why is she associating with the maids? Is it because they swaddle her in soft clothes and she can sleep peacefully there? Or because they genuinely admire her and treat her like a puppy? Interrupting them is Eric, who came to get her. Quickly, everyone is at attention and the head maid briefs him on the needful. She tells him that Misa's maids were unavailable, and they came to meet her fast asleep on the floor. Out of concern, they swaddled her up before letting the butler know what had happened so he can pass the message to him. It's a kind gesture he approves of. Still, he thinks it's time he looked after her. Willingly, he takes her to the room, but on getting there, she wakes up and starts wiggling vigorously. He wants her to let him go, but he can't until he lets her down, so she doesn't get hurt. Once placed on the bed, Misa pulls away cautiously. She's been like this for the past few days, making him believe she doesn't like him that much. Truly, it seems like all she considers him to be is her means of transportation. That doesn't stop him from trying to help her with the thread of yarn stuck in her hair. Nevertheless, the second he moves towards her, she is startled and pulls away again. Right now, she looks like a white cat from his childhood. He finds that amusing, and because of that, he keeps Misa company until later in the night, where he leaves her to rest while he handles the pile of letters on his desk. In them contains issues from the palace maids complaining about him ignoring their services, food rationing problems, and so much more. It's enough to stress anyone out, so Eric plans to call it a night, and is about to go to bed when he notices a sealed letter on his table. Quickly, he opens it and the contents freeze time. It's a message from his mother concerning his father's affair. During their days on the battlefield, he suspected his father had some skeletons in his cupboard, and confirmed his suspicions when he spotted his father with a certain waitress from the area. Since they were at war, he saw no need to stress about it, taking the matter as trivial, even though he felt betrayed and bitter. It was war, so he kept it a secret, monitoring the woman and his watch over his father until after the war. His investigation showed the waitress had no benefactors, so he wanted to leave the issue be, but couldn't after discovering his father kept seeing the waitress, and even made her his concubine. Out of love for his mother, he reported his father's infidelity to her, along with evidence through her maid, Edie. Her response, also through her maid, was plain and simple. She didn't care what Margrave was doing and who he was doing it with. She was too old to concern herself with such and is glad she sees him less. The only issue she has is that his concubine isn't a noble woman and can't help them in any way. Giving it some more thought, Eric knows he shouldn't have expected the response he got from his mother. Her and his father were never close to begin with, raising the family like strangers from their marriage up till now. While thinking about his chaotic family, Eric notices Misa is awake and tries to ask her what's wrong. She doesn't respond, ending up on his lap with her face lighted up. It's clear she's interested in the documents on the table, but he is glad that at least this time she came to him. Watching her rip every letter she touches to shreds, Eric starts deep thinking again. Focusing on how he hadn't thought much about his situation because he resented the king, but he felt a new wave of emotions at the thought of her being the one he was going to spend the rest of his life with. When he met her as a child, he felt a sense of responsibility and some level of pride, but that feeling only lasted a season. Reality struck, making him see himself as a tool for ushering in the next generation. For a man like him who never had high expectations when it came to marriage or women, settling down with one who derives joy from ripping papers to shred isn't a problem. It's responsibility. After a night of deciding which documents Miesa gets to shred and which she doesn't, they both end up in bed, waking up to a beautiful morning. At one end of the mansion, Thalisa and Edie, her maid, talk state affairs when Miesa walks into the room and drops to the floor purposely. Her chubby maid follows carefully behind, and although she is displeased, Thalisa calmly asks what the princess is doing here, when she heard she spent most of her time with her maids. Edie throws herself into the conversation, furthering their act when she claims the princess at times acts like a commoner. Thalisa acts amused by that, staging concern when she asks her maid, Lady Dial, how the princess loves to be addressed. Her failure to respond reveals that they do not care about the girl or try to get along with her, as she thought. Edie then drops suggestions on how to address the girl, and Eric's mother lands at calling her by her name, Misa. Unexpectedly, that makes her light up. Using that to her advantage, she praises her name, and Dial suggests Misa likes her. She agrees and is asked if she'll like anything for dinner. Thalisa gives a negative response, however, dismissing Dial, who leaves immediately. Although they ease up once she's gone, Edie acknowledges that it's hard not to have their guards up in front of the maids. She announced that she did a little digging and discovered that while Diale is always available to run Misa's baths, Lady Malachi's is hardly around. In truth, both maids are openly lazy. Taliesa wonders why. She can place a finger on what the Emperor is trying to put them on. She earns a headache from even thinking about it, and asks Edie to fetch her some headache medicine from her room. Edie assigns a maid to do it, and when she returns with the maid, she notices Miesa resting on her mistress's knee. She can't believe a woman of such high status would let someone like the princess get so close to her. She thinks the headache has something to do with this reaction, and asks her if she needs to see a doctor. In truth, she doesn't. Concerning Misa, she wants to know if the girl is truly 20 years old. Edie confirms she is, making her feel pity for the poor girl. She knows her insanity started after she witnessed so much of the royal family get eliminated. She watched her friends and family die, yet she is still being exploited by her brother. The more she thinks about it, the more her pity for the girl increases, to the point that she proposes they keep her healthy by feeding her. She also notes Misa has wonderful skin, pretty eyes, and other remarkable facial features. She is focusing on the details, something she isn't known for. Funny enough, Edie also never paid attention to the girl. She starts to do so as their eyes meet, and they remind her of someone from their far past. While she wonders if Misa is that person, Thalisa proposes the girl gets a pedicure. There's no telling how it'll go. Eric isn't there, but when he gets back, he is informed by his butler that his wife has been with his mother all morning. Curious to know what's going on, he hurries there but is stunned by what he sees. His mother personally handling Misa's nails. Eric freezes with his jaw dropped for so long that his mother and Edie notice him and are disturbed by the look on his face. He knew his mother as someone who, even though she felt little sympathy for a person, she was never going to do as much as touch that person. Growing up, she was very rational and even cold to him, her son. Looking back, she only had this happy, adorable expression when his younger sister Rosier was alive. He fears his mother has accepted the princess because she projects her late child. For her own good, he steps in, managing to get the scissors from her and handle the pedicure himself. He isn't sure whether he is right or wrong for interfering, but he thinks he is on the right path as he keeps getting flashes of his mother's face on the day his sister passed. As he goes on with his free nail service, Misa doesn't look too pleased. She was calm before, but with her facial expressions gradually changing, Edie fears she might cause a fuss. She racks her brain quickly, thinking of how to prevent that, and finally notices the cookies on the table. Quickly, she shoves one into Misa's mouth, and it actually calms her down. Eric, after witnessing her sudden reaction, asks why she did what she did, and she explains. Her explanation, along with the realization that Misa likes sweet snacks, makes Thalisa laugh. But watching her eat makes the older lady even more excited. The day was a success, no doubt. But at night, all Eric can think about while feeding Misa is how his mother reacted towards her. He is convinced she likened her to Rosier, but doesn't know why. To him, their only similarity is their eyes. If that was it, then what about his cousin Amberic? He has similar eyes. Does that mean his mother gave him special treatment too? He can't tell, wanting to resume feeding her when he acknowledges that she has become more docile. His joy is short-lived, all thanks to the grilled quail they serve that she reacts aggressively to. For her sake, he has to ask the butlers to take it out, and they do, while he wonders what made her react the way she did. Her maids had told him she ate all types of food. Could it be that she got sick because of quail one time? The following day, Misa pays the maids' workroom another surprise visit. They all seem happy to have her, but one shows the most joy out of them all. She is so kind that she spreads something for her to lay on to prevent her from catching a cold due to the harshness of the cold, hard floor. The other maids, however, think she is a weirdo for talking to the girl. It's similar to talking to herself since she doesn't have the ability to understand what she is saying. They noticed Eric did similar, but they understood things on his end. She was his wife. It's normal for him to pamper her and carry her everywhere, preventing her feet from touching the floor. But before now, they noticed he had next to no interest in women. They fear people like Misa have always been his type and are about discussing it when a maid stops them, arguing that it was normal for a couple to be as close as they were. When the weird maid returns, everyone hushes, prompting her to ask what they were talking about. She is told not to worry about it, however, and they switch their chat to how Misa puts on such shabby clothes and keeps getting dirty. To help her stay neat, they all agree to embroider her a bib, getting to it immediately while some maids in a different uniform stare at them judgmentally. At the training grounds, Eric notices it's past lunchtime. Unexpectedly, his wife slips into his thoughts. Recalling how she reacted strangely because of grilled quail the previous night, he fears she is still moody like she was in the morning, so he dismisses training for the day, hurrying off to find her afterwards. On his way to the mansion, he thinks about a lot of Misa-based topics, like how she might not have had lunch or she didn't get to play with the maids, something he is aware she loves doing. She doubts she'll ever get to have fun like the maids, but he is somewhat wrong, based on what the butler has to report. Today, the only rest she had was the little nap she took in between the many activities she got involved with. The most outstanding, nonetheless, is that she fell into a stream on her way to the chapel with his mother. It happened while she was admiring fish, but it wasn't anything serious. What is serious, however, is her distaste towards the chapel. Although she willingly followed his mother to the service at the chapel, the butler notes that when she got there, she was reluctant to step in and ended up waiting outside with the maid until the service was concluded. Eric wonders if it'll have been better if they took snacks along and orders that there should be a steady provision of sugary snacks for Misa. That night, he feeds her as usual, watching how bubbly she is with joy. From this night, he can tell the previous one was just a bad night and nothing more. Everything is going great, until a freak accident leads to her biting his finger. At first, Eric doesn't pull away, but when he eventually does, he has this look on his face Misa doesn't approve of. Engaged, she takes off the tablecloth, sending all the dishes flying. Some of the plates land on the floor, others on her, meaning she'll need a shower. To handle that is her maid, Lady Dial, who is fed up with the night-by-night chaos. Still, she helps Misa get clean, returning her later that night by bedtime. Unlike Eric, who is deep in thought, she is fast asleep. But what is the man thinking of late at night that has him so shook? Well, the moment with her biting his hand actually felt romantic. He is ashamed he felt that way, considering how even though she is his wife, she is still a child. He warns himself against seeing Misa in such light, struggling to fall asleep during his battle between what's right and what's wrong. Fortunately for him, he gets himself together, and days later he is with his mother and wife at her study. Thalisa, while pampering Misa, tells him about this poetry reading she plans to attend on Wednesday. She plans to take Misa with her, but fears it might be too much for the girl. She still wants to take her, nonetheless, and Eric advises her not to overdo things. She wouldn't have if she didn't need to, but she is sure she has to show the ladies that she and her daughter-in-law get along. On paper, the gathering is what its title says it is, but deep down it's a meeting where the mistresses of like-minded families come together once a month, like hyenas to gossip about the corrupt royal family and other lacking noble houses. Aside from showing them that she still got it, it's a place where it's easy to get information on what's happening in the Empire. Unlike other times, Thaliessa and the Chladni house are hosting this month's meeting, the reason why maids and butlers are at the venue making sure everything is spot on. In all, it's going to be a massive event, with the Marquess of Crispin and her daughter Lacan on the guest list. It's the first meeting between the Crispins and Chladnis since their plans fell out, making this something of secret interest for everyone coming. Although they know what needs to be done, in this meeting they cannot discuss the downfall of their plans. Nevertheless, they can get ready for future alliances. Since they have to wait until Wednesday to see what happens, for now, Thalisa wants to take Misa to see the greenhouse, as in the venue for the poetry reading. The girl is willing to follow her, but before letting them go, Eric asks her if she had a good time. His mother finds his tone when he does that funny, comparing his approach to that of a father who left his child with a nanny. She affirms that Misa had a good time and decides to invite him to accompany them to the greenhouse since he isn't busy. At the greenhouse, while his mother handles business, Misa is all over the place, running around like a child. Her attitude at the moment relaxes him of all the tension he has been feeling concerning her. Everything is going great when her maid friends approach her to keep her company. With them is a caged bird that accidentally triggers dark memories from Miasa's past. Memories about her mother wanting to scold her that leave her crying out and cowering on the floor. The first person to run to her aid is Eric, while everyone else tries to process what just happened. As he frantically asks what happened, she responds by throwing herself into his arms like a scared kitten. He catches her, though he is shocked and focuses his attention on the maids. Fretfully, they tell him they think she reacted that way because of the bird. Seeing no reason why that should trigger such a reaction, Eric is stunned. It's only after her maids reveal that she is scared of birds that he understands why she reacted the way she did. The maid with the cage needs no one to tell her before she hides the cage, but his mother has no quarrel with her. Her focus is on the maids who didn't disclose a detail so vital. Everyone has some stick with them, yet they respond nonchalantly, demanding they be more polite to them because of all the work they do instead of getting pissed that they didn't reveal such a little detail. They pay no respect to Thalisa, who decides to let their insolence go unpunished this time. Edie, on the other hand, wants to give them a piece of her, but she isn't in the right environment to do that. As for Eric, he just leaves with Misa, planning to stabilize her. Outside, he observes her even more and recalls the way she reacted when they served roast quail. He thinks her fear has something to do with the way she reacted, and he might not be wrong. Deciding not to take any chances, he intends to cancel out all bird-related meals from being served to her. Until she feels better, he wants to take her into the mansion, but she points to the garden. Normally, he expected her to want to go indoors for fear of a bird passing by. But since the outdoors will make her happy, he promises to defend her while they are outside. The walk there is uneventful, as the only thing notable is Eric's thoughts about how Misa has been out of the mansion just twice. Whether or not she'll go out more, he'll decide that another day. For now, he urges her to relax, promising to tuck her in if she falls asleep. In the end, Misa's energetic nature is no match for the tranquil outdoors. It doesn't take her too long to fall asleep, meaning in some minutes, Eric will take her in. At least that's what he would have done if he didn't get a surprise visit from Ambrick. His cousin praises the couple for being so close, and asks if she is asleep, but Eric tells him to scram. He didn't expect Eric to be grumpy and guesses he is this way because he fears his lady will wake up. Refusing to back down, his cousin acts like he wasn't asked to leave and tells Eric that there are rumors of him and his wife all over, so much that some even got to him. Although he is concerned about Misa, Eric is aware his uncle is fervently trying to make Ambrick head of the family, as his replacement. And that's something of concern to him. It's also enough reason for him to hear Ambrick out. According to his loudmouth cousin, there is a red-haired spy among the maids going about gossiping. He learned that she is a new maid, was sent from Dice, the capital, and is in league with one of Misa's personal escorts. Along with this info, he got to know of a brown-haired male spy among his servants and reveals his name simultaneously with the moment Eric gets lost in thought again. He misses the name, sadly, but when it comes to his cousin, he is aware he doesn't have to worry much. Ambrick has no interest in the family head position. The entire family knows that, and since his father has been absent of late, all eyes look to him to step up. Their expectations are high, which is becoming far more unbearable than he expected. It's as if he is held down and trapped in a coffin. The only high he is experiencing recently is Misa. Admittedly, many will not understand why he is always so nice to her. They don't get why he lets her cling to him. It's not their fault. He is as confused as they are, but having her around instead of her running away from him warms Eric's cold heart in an inexplicable way. As for Ambrick, he believes that to an extent he can trust him. He did on the battlefield, and they grew closer with every near-death experience they tackled together, so he willingly trusts him to an extent. Post-war. Their time on the battlefield also is the reason why Ambrick is supporting him in this whole family head issue, taking his side over his own father. Eric is truly grateful to him. He doesn't hide that. But his cousin thinks Eric is also doing him a favor by making his life interesting. Everything else aside, he wants to know if his cousin has truly fallen head over heels for Misa. He thinks so after he heard Eric trimmed her toenails himself, but Eric claims he did it because he couldn't stand by and watch his mother do something so lowly. That's that. But Ambrick refuses to use that one time to judge how Eric feels about Misa. He complains about him carrying her around, claiming that he heard she hasn't even set foot on the mansion floors yet. That's a bit overboard, but he does carry her everywhere and claims he does it because she can't walk properly on her own. The way he sees it, he'd rather do that than pull her around like the maids did at their wedding. He reminds him that Misa is part of their family now, but even that isn't enough. Sure, Eric has a logical explanation for everything he is doing, with circumstances to back his exceptional sense of duty and even his compassion. But upon all that, he still can't understand why he's doing what he is doing. Initially, he thought he was being nice to fool the king. If that was the case, then why was he letting her sleep on him when no one was around? Eric warns him to stop talking at that juncture, but Ambrick cannot be silenced. He is open to getting rid of Misa sooner than later and continuing with the plan of him getting married to Lady Lacan of the Crispin house. He thinks the poor girl is a misfortune, and that forces Eric to open up. He claims he accepted the proposal because it was the best course of action for him to take. He understood that by doing exactly what the Emperor wanted and submitting, they could move in the shadows because he'd pay less attention to them for a while. Still, it didn't matter who he married as far as she benefited the family. He knew that. He ends his little speech by assuring Ambrick that Misa knows nothing. She is an open book and didn't even know who was carrying her or how she was being treated. In his eyes, she was already miserable. There was no need to make her even more miserable. Hearing this explanation, the ranting younger cousin calms down, although he warns Eric that everyone treats the poor girl like a plague. He hates to admit it, but he doesn't disagree. What an afternoon, even so, the drama that is underway in the form of the poetry reading is definitely going to topple this one. Initially, it didn't look like much. Guests/noble acquaintances of the Chladni family were arriving one by one, and the hall gradually became packed. Before the reading starts, the Marquess of Crispin and her daughter, Lady Lacan, drop in too. Finally, before the event starts, Eric shows courtesy by coming with Miesa to briefly greet the congregation. Merely showing up for the event causes a ripple effect, which is the dozens of eyes they had to endure during the short time they used to greet their visitors. On top of that, the couple received insincere congratulations for their union, but Eric saw it coming. Aside from him and his wife, everyone silently watched to see how the Crispin-Chladni relationship was going to be during the span of their meeting. He'll deal with that later, if need be. But for now, he hoists his wife onto his arms and takes her out, declaring she is feeling unwell. Following behind is Lacan. She came without an escort, and neither of them notice they are being watched, when Eric asks her to keep what she has to say brief, alleging he is in a haste. She does as he requested, admonishing him not to have children with Misa, after which she lets her handkerchief fly and leaves. After the reading, the Marquess and Lacan head back to their estate discussing Eric. Although the mother is glad her daughter did as she was told, but was disgusted by the closeness Eric exhibited towards Misa. She is convinced he is romantically attached to her, since in her book she is the type of girl men fall for. A pretty girl who knows how to giggle the right way. She poses a threat to their mission of getting into the Chladni house, but the Marquess urges her daughter to find a way to get into the house and get them the life they have never had. Lacan was basically raised to bear heirs for the family she ended up in and was taught basic etiquette and virtues of being a good hostess, but there's a side to her. We'll get to see later, and it'll probably explain why her hands look so worn out. That night, Eric is drowning in work. With his father's focus fixed on political affairs, keeping the family in order is his duty. It isn't easy, really. It's a big house with numerous problems, and he has to make decisions concerning all. The most pressing duty he has to attend to at the moment is figuring out how they'll get through the summer, as they are experiencing food shortage. This happening after losing life and property isn't funny, but it's a problem. He has to handle it. And the best solution he comes up with is finding a way to ensure they stay fed until autumn. By then, he expects the returning soldiers to be able to harvest the fields, stabilizing their situation little by little. They were the ones who gave the most to make sure the war was squashed. You think the Emperor would compensate them properly? But he didn't. Instead, he gave them the Halleck iron mine, something they need to develop in the meantime and would likely profit from years later. Ultimately, it won't help with their feeding problem, an issue that the Emperor has turned a blind eye to, leaving them on their own. It's not a significant financial burden, in truth, but it's an issue nonetheless. Young Misa doesn't understand that, if she did, it's unlikely that she would have approached him to bother him at a time like this. Days later, the family have another problem to contend with, in Lakani's missing handkerchief. She dropped it at the mansion purposely, and it's a show of romantic interest. But Thalisa, when she's told about the sign, orders Edie to get the maids of their mansion to join the Crispin maids in searching for it, before rumors begin to spread. She instructs her to say the handkerchief they are searching for belongs to her, an explanation that might not do in the long run, but it is used to get some maids searching for it without suspicion. During the search, maid Malachi's signals the Crispin maid who informed Thalisa of the handkerchief, and they go to a corner to discuss. Their topic, getting rid of Misa. The maid wants it done within 2 years, yet Malachi's is willing to do it even today. The sooner the better for her, but in any case, they need to constantly communicate and understand that the Cladney mansion isn't the best place to do that. She can't keep making excuses to come over, so they conclude that the best place to meet is in the city. And since Malachi's is quite free most of the time, all she needs is a time and place for them to meet. Behind all this is undoubtedly the Marquis of Crispin and Lady Lacan, who must have promised this sly maid a lot of money. Before they know it, it's evening and dinner is in a few minutes, the main reason why Thalisa is busy getting Misa's hair done. For the sake of them, eating together, with Margrave, that is. She asks the girl to be quiet and well. Margrave, watching from a distance, is irritated by his wife's closeness with the girl, but gets even more pissed when she takes back her earlier charge and replaces it with a request that all Misa should do at dinner is eat well. She cares more about the girl than she does about what her husband thinks, which is visible when at dinner time Margrave complains about the annoying sound she is making by dragging the table fork on an empty glass plate. The maids also find the noise appalling, but say nothing, while he tries to get his wife to control the situation, but she employs him to be patient with Misa, who is just learning how to eat by herself. Defeated, he looks to his son, expecting a more rational response from him, but Eric, instead of scolding her, carefully advises her on what to do. He thinks it's irritating that someone so old needed so much care, but by constantly stressing this matter, he finally gets Thalisa to ask him not to pay attention to Misa. She is sure the girl doesn't want his attention anyway, a statement that shouldn't be taken as disrespectful, but Margrave decides to see it that way. It gets worse when his wife ignores his mood while focusing on Eric making sure her daughter-in-law eats well. That attitude is the last straw for him and the reason why he gets up to leave. Before exiting, though, he doesn't forget to angrily remind them of their meeting with the Emperor in some days. They are supposed to greet Vermalik the tyrant, and he wants them to make sure Misa has no bruises or scratches when the time comes, for the sake of the family. In Escalier, it's a tradition that a newlywed couple visit the home of the parents of the bride, 50 days after marriage. That meant he had to go to the palace with Misa, and Thalisa wants to be sure he is all right and has gotten gifts for the Emperor. Eric claims he has, and soon enough, the day of the visit arrives. While he is in the carriage with Misa, Eric watches Lady Malachi's giving orders to the carriage driver after ordering them in what they should and shouldn't load onto the carriage. Eric is shocked to see her handling her duties. As for his wife, she is just being herself, the wife he welcomed amid the sympathetic gazes of people. He agrees she isn't as bad as he thought, and he leans over to ask her if she remembers his name. To no one's surprise, she pulls away. Something he finds funny as he tells himself that although she might not know who he is, having someone to protect makes his life worth living. Once Malachi's is done giving instructions, she joins them in the carriage and the journey to the palace begins. It's a peaceful and uneventful ride, landing them at the palace in no time. Upon arriving, Eric and Misa are not even allowed to rest before being ushered through the intimidating halls to go see the Emperor. Taking cognizance of his origin and rise to power 20 years ago, Eric attributes Vermalik's quick success after ascending the throne to the power that backed him in the form of his mother's people. The Salakis were a powerful family. Their dominance ended 11 years ago, around the period when the Emperor flipped his switch and ended up painting the palace with the blood of his people. It was said that before the previous pool of blood dried, another person was unalived. Eric knows the halls he is walking through were once covered in blood and bodies, so much that as he walks, he doesn't know whose body lay on the spot he last stepped on, or which lay on the one he is about to take. To visit a man with so much bloodlust explains fully why Eric is on edge and resents Vermalik. Miesa, on the other hand, doesn't look bothered at all. She is free as always, and her brother can see that her face is prettier now than it was the last time he saw her. With Vermalik is his concubine and wise men, but Miesa pays no respect to them when she drops to the floor like she usually does. Although he ignores that, he drags their attention back to her improved complexion, attributing it to the possibility of her being pregnant. Of course, the sly man hopes a baby is on the way, and Eric plays along, even though he could never make someone like Misa, who can't process things straight, go through the woes of childbirth. He thinks he has been able to fool Vermalik, but his advisor comes to him, whispering to him, while Eric tries to use his claim of Miesa not being fully healthy to leave the room. His plan fails, however, when the Emperor takes his mind back to the night after the wedding. He declares that although he shared proof of consummation, the princess was fine, which wasn't supposed to be. Going on, he notes that the maids constantly gathered proof to show that he hasn't laid a finger on Misa yet. To think Malachi's and Diala would go that far. For Malik accuses Eric of not being happy to have an heir with royal blood and willfully takes his act of deceit as treason. The Emperor speaking of treason simply means the life of all the members of the Chladni house and their staff is on the line. To save them, war against the Empire would be the only option, but he can't do that with only 70 knights that he brought to the capital city. For Malik already has Eric nailed, but to fully crucify him, he turns to Miesa, coercing her in order to get a confession from her that her husband didn't touch her. To everyone's surprise, for the first time, they witness Misa communicating back with words and actions that manage to get Eric off the hook for the time being. He is still stunned as the Emperor dismisses them harshly, but he takes Miesa away anyway, back to the carriage and then home. Upon arriving, he orders that everyone is kept away from the West Wing on the second floor, declaring that he will take care of her this evening, but wants Cullen, one of his knights, to be summoned. Amidst the crowd that comes to welcome Eric is Dial, who can't understand why he is requesting solitude. Nevertheless, there is nothing she can do about it. Later on, at the West Wing, Cullen, a Chladni knight that is also Eric's right-hand man, arrives in response to Eric's summons. He meets Misa, causing a fuss, but is instructed to make sure no one comes near the room while he is in. Should anything happen, he wants to be informed ASAP, an order Cullen can uphold. Once he is out of the room, all focus is back on Misa, who Eric starts to interrogate. First, he informs her that no matter what she does, no one can hear her. A detail that frightens her, but he tries to let her know it also means that she can talk to him. He is aware she is able to communicate and refuses to let her continue feigning innocence. For that reason, he is patient enough to wait for her to get tired and speak up. It is her only way out of this. Just when it looks like Miesa will prolong his wait, she does something out of the ordinary, spooking him by quoting what his mother said to his father during dinner some days ago. "Honey, don't pay any attention to Misa. Misa doesn't want your attention either." The repetition was nothing like what she did in that palace. Unlike then, when her tone was innocent and shaky, this one is firm, yet elegant. So elegant that he is at a loss for words, but still manages to ask her why she put up that act before her brother. Her good acting saved him no less, but she responds with another quote. "We'll be looking for meat like hyenas, so we have to show that we're doing well." He's sure he has heard that phrase before, but can't put a finger on where he heard it from. For now, though, due to his hand shaking in shock and his mind not being able to process things properly, he lets her go and apologizes for being too hard on her. In truth, she is much more than he ever expected. So cunning that he wonders what her little head has been thinking all this time that made her use trickery to survive. According to the stories he heard, she was 8 years old when she watched her mother die. As time passed, she witnessed the deaths of her half-sibling and more in the hands of the Emperor. She feared she'd suffer the same fate and accepted to be treated worse than an animal, over death. For a man who just came into her life, Eric feels pity towards her, for all the years she spent living less than human. He wonders if he is supposed to offer her words of comfort for her terrible past. But when he considers the possibility of his words not being able to rid her of all the pain she experienced, he swallows his words and leaves. The following morning, Eric stayed around when Miesa's maids came to check on her and the butler brought food. He sat silently, watching Malachi's go to wake her up for her meal. In Malachi's head, she was discouraged to see that he wasn't executed for giving false proof of consummation to the Emperor. She still plans to go on with her duties, but he stops her, ordering her to let Miesa sleep some more, especially after the journey to the palace and back that he is sure was exhausted. It's all an act, the maid suspects, but does as she is asked. She can't say what exactly is up with him, but she lets things be, while Eric's butler advises him to have breakfast since they brought it already. He does, even though it's his first time eating alone since Miesa came into his life, and every bite tastes as rough as sand. His day continues while we spend Miesa's day with her. Ever since the big revelation yesterday, seeing that there is more to her makes her actions clearer. She actually plans the weird deeds she wants to carry out during the day, from messing up the breakfast table to nibbling on Eric's clothes to bothering Dial. It's all planned. It's all an act she carries out cleanly, until she stops to think about Eric. The black-haired man, and the chances of him revealing her secret. She recalls that yesterday he looked like he was angry at her. If he truly was and exposed her, she worries that they'll kick her out of the only place she has found comfort in a while. Truly, she is scared, but for her sake, she relies on her knowledge of him up until now. He didn't seem like the type of person who would rat her out. Well, just in case he did, she knows the best way to confirm is by going to see his mother. When she gets there, Thalisa welcomes her warmly as usual, although she complains about how dangerous it is for her to walk around without any maids. Watching Miesa collapse on her, she guesses she must still be half asleep. Her daughter-in-law, with a clear mind, is overjoyed that Eric's mother is still her usual self. Since she was already handling family business, she continues, urging the butler not to mind Miesa's presence. He obeys, discussing with the woman of the house freely about all that's been happening so far concerning produce and edibles. During the discussion, Miesa picks the necessary details and plots solutions for their food scarcity on her own. Yes, she knows about Eric being worried because of the coming food scarcity. That night, she read the documents. While plotting solutions, Thalisa feeds her butter and is overjoyed when it looks like she is enjoying it. For her sake, she plans to get more butter, an attitude Misa doesn't understand. How is it that Eric and his mother are always happy when they see her eat? The ones closest to her, her brother and the maids assigned to her, had no care in the world for her, making it hard for her to believe that anyone in the world would care so much about a princess who is a plague. Anyways, as always, her day goes on perfectly, at least until Eric returns and comes to get her. Thalisa is surprised that Miesa, who is usually calm, isn't acting calm, but she had no idea the girl just doesn't want to go with Eric. She is scared because he knows her secret. Still, he picks her up and whispers to her that it'll be best for her to come with him, since he hasn't snitched on her. Later on, they have dinner together. He is all formal, and she is annoyed by his sudden strictness, and him expecting her to eat by herself. For a moment, she dislikes him, consoling herself with the niceness of the servants of the household. They are so caring that even though they knew she would eat her food with her bare hands, they brought cutleries for her. Now, faced with the problem of eating by herself, Miesa finds it hard to eat with the spoon and fork. It's been over 10 years since she tried using them. It isn't easy, but she manages to take one bite, only for him to compliment her for being good at eating. She can't believe he just told her that and ditches this cutlery to eat with her bare hands. While eating, she makes a mess, as usual, and cleans herself with her tongue. Not only is she using her hands because it makes eating easier, but also to keep the table messy and avoid suspicion from maids who come to clear out the leftovers. What she is doing isn't wrong. It's what she usually does. But for some reason, Eric finds this tempting. For his sake, he asks her to stop and pulls his chair from his end of the table to hers. Throughout, she is thinking he is angry, but that's not it. Since she doesn't know why he is acting up, she thinks it has something to do with her eating like a beggar like she usually did. But he just cleans her up and leaves the rest for the servants to handle when they come around. While he supervises from a silent corner, Miesa endures a harsh bath from Malachi's. The maid can't understand why Miesa never catches a cold and wishes for a few days of comfortable rest, the same thing the poor girl wishes for. It's been a while since Malachi's came to handle her bath by herself. She usually left it for the other servants. Since she came of her own accord and is acting grumpy, Misa decides to retaliate by pulling hard on her hair. The maid can't help but retaliate, struggling until Eric intervenes. As he demands an explanation for what he just witnessed, she expresses her shock for him coming to the bathroom, but also tells him that Miesa caused a riot. She doesn't stop there, and throws in a claim that Mesa usually hurts herself when she enters riot mode and she doesn't know what to do. A laughable excuse on her part, but she uses it anyway, and hopes to get him out of the bathroom so she can finish bathing Misa. To her astonishment, Eric offers to handle her bath himself, unmoved by Malachi's claim that he isn't ready for all the splashing and running around the girl does during showers. He replies that he is most fit to handle this, so she gives up and briefs him on what to use on her. Only Miesa and her know that she is lying. She never uses any of the things she recommended he uses, but she is grateful nonetheless, preferring the baths she has here to the lye water baths she had at the palace. Eric is uncomfortable right now, truly, so he asks her if she can bathe herself. She stays silent and confused by the way he is acting, thinking he is angry. Honestly, she can't have that and decides to cooperate, disrobing to keep him from nullifying the marriage and reporting her to her brother. There's also the chance of him getting physical. He has a physique that makes it look like he is violent, like her brother. She endured a lot in that maniac's hand, and although she finds it somewhat charming, she fears that he is about to get forceful. It's the height of her mistaking his confusion for anger, but just when she expects things to get bad, she feels his gentle touch on her back, followed by a concerned demand to know how she got the scar on her back. It sounded as though he pitied her, as he used a tone she had never heard him use before. He sounds as if he feels regret for her, a tone that prompted her to respond that the cause of her scar was her brother. Well, at least that's the response she thought she gave. What he heard was her usual sounds that didn't piss him off, but it made him quit the chit-chat and get to washing her. For her good, he urges her to tell him if she feels any discomfort, since it's his first time and he has no idea what he is doing. During the bath, Miesa feels like she is being treated like a puppy, but also notes how careful he is being toward her. She feels so good, asking herself if a bath was supposed to be this great. During the bath, she remembers that shame is a thing, and this new feeling she thinks Eric passed to her. They both end up with red faces. That doesn't lead to anything later on. Later that night, Eric is tired, but instead of focusing on himself, he is trying to get Miesa to join him in bed, claiming she must be tired. Initially, she listens, laying next to him, thinking about how he has been giving her mixed feelings, but mostly kindness from the interrogation yesterday. To him feeling sympathy towards her for her scars, to him not complaining about the way she ate. She wanted to hide her true self from him, but in the end, she was unable to do so. Why? She can't say. Even so, the second she notices he is asleep, she slips out of bed and into the dressing room. In all, she thinks he is a rare good person. For that reason, she intends to be kind to him. What she doesn't know is that he isn't asleep. Out of curiosity, he follows her into the dressing room. The closer he gets to the room, the more sounds he hears coming from it, until he gets there to see her practicing her speech to a mirror using all the phrases she came across today. He marvels at first, but ends up in even more awe when she turns to him and manages to put together a sentence. "Honey, Misa is practicing. Do not..." The following day, the maids come to inspect her, treating her like a mutt as usual. But unlike previous times, she actually feels ashamed, an emotion Eric awakened in her yesterday. Today she feels dirty about the way she's being treated, though she chooses to focus more on Eric than she does on their words. Yesterday, she discovered that the thought of someone discovering her true self made her feel uncomfortable. She can't tell what he is thinking about her right now, but assumes he views her as a weirdo. Malachi's and Dayal, unaware of what's going on in her mind, discuss the thought of Eric not being aroused by Misa. They think she is too lowly for anyone to want to have a child with her, which is what they think. But that's okay. Her mind is on her body. It's been a while since she suffered any bruises. It's dangerous for her at this point. She has to cause a major disaster and put a frown on some faces or suspicions may start to rise. For the rest of her morning, all she focuses on is what to do that is so her. Her first idea is to hurt herself, but that's suddenly a problem to her. She doesn't want to get seriously hurt. Her next idea is breaking something expensive, like the vase she is setting her eyes on, but with the family's current condition, she can't bring herself to do it. In the end, her best bet is getting herself hurt. To do that, she focuses on the set of stairs they are approaching, along with Dayal, who is far back and seemingly uninterested. All she has to do is pretend to lose strength in her legs and all from the first stair to the bottom, while trying her best to control it and not harm herself. Easy, right? Nope, it's so difficult that she closes her eyes before preparing to make the jump. As soon as she's ready, Miesa lets herself fall, only to be caught by Eric, who dismisses Dayal, offering to look after his wife himself for the day. She is sad he foiled her plan, but quietly follows him anyway. Their first stop is the greenhouse, where they sit to chat. For her sake, he ordered the removal of all the birds, but he is curious about why she is scared of birds. After pressing for a bit, she finally speaks up saying, "The bird ate it." It's a vague statement, and he requests more info about it, but she's thinking about the audacity it took him to bring her here without permission. She isn't done dwelling on that when his questions about her speech start to bother her. Why is he pestering her? We can't say, but the man continues stressing about her speech, assuring her that she can speak freely because no one is around. Due to her continued silence, Eric starts dropping suggestions. The one that catches her attention is when he asks if it's difficult for her to speak. Really, it is. She expresses herself better in her head, yet when it comes to voicing it out, it's impossible. From Misa's growing interest after he dropped the suggestion, Eric believes he is barking the right tree, so he asks her if it's hard to put together words because it's been a while since she conversed with someone. She doesn't know for sure, honestly, but it sounds like he is right. More so, the reason he continues, declaring that although she is bad at expressing herself, she is good at mimicking others. With a nod, she affirms his statement, making him suggest that she keep communicating with nods to make things easier. Nodding should be enough for now. Nevertheless, observing Eric and the expression on his face, she is motivated to speak, giving her next response her all. Sadly, it doesn't sound right to her, throwing her into red-faced shame. She is troubled that this keeps happening to her, Eric can tell, which is why he encourages her, promising that with continued practice, she'll be perfect at speech in no time. Until then, he offers himself up as a learning tool, permitting Miesa to imitate him to groom her speech. For learning purposes, he lets her feel his Adam's apple, its movements and positioning based on the sounds he makes and his speech. He claims he was taught this method of speech by someone during puberty, and he urges her to try it out for herself. Although Misa doesn't know what puberty is, she gives his method a go. He recommends she use it to say anything to him, if she has gotten the essentials. Swiftly, she does as she asks him what puberty is. For some reason, his attempts to keep a straight face after the question is hard. He ends up laughing uncomfortably, leaving her both pissed and confused. When he is done laughing, Eric apologizes for the rude response, after which he explains that everyone's voices change around the same age, puberty. He notes that it's her first time hearing the word, but admonishes her to ask any other questions or say anything else if she'd like to. His brain goes blank when the next thing to come out of her lips is, "You haven't touched me yet. Looking forward to it." He doesn't get it, or decides not to get it initially, but does when she demonstrates, informing him that she desires intimacy. He stops her, no less, but is red as a cherry as he begs her not to be so froward in public again. Seeing that he gets what she means, Misa will like to know when they get intimate. She is scared that if they don't do it soon, she'll be dragged away by the Emperor again. Such fate is not in her bucket list. It's not in his too. Nonetheless, he begs for more time. Miesa can't understand why his face is so red right now, but listening to him suggests they first get to know each other, then discuss the discomfort she spoke of one time, before delving into heated nights. She doesn't understand why he is backing down. Even so, she accepts his offer to give her a tour around the greenhouse. Initially, she considers Malachi's and Dial said about the Emperor monitoring her marriage, but casts the thought aside, choosing to enjoy this moment. It's not like they'll come get her now anyway. The walk continues, the couple sightsee, sharing a peaceful afternoon before he notices that she is walking fine on her own and asks if she ever had an issue with walking. The smile on her face following the question leaves Eric in awe. He admits that she even had him fooled with her good acting skills, not only then, but from the start. He'd like to know how she was able to fake it, and she'd love to explain. But she doesn't know how to tell him that she put pressure on the back of her thighs and calves. Moreover, it's fine. He is aware her speech is impaired, she doesn't have to say much. To show she is very comfortable with him, Misa stretches her hand out for Eric to carry her. The man doesn't hesitate, lifting her as he commends her for walking more than usual today. In his arms, no less, she finds peace along with the understanding that he is a better person than she thought, and shows her a kindness that she thinks will last. Looking back to the night before her wedding, Mesa recalls the priestess reading to her about intimacy. She read about it in an indifferent tone that made it sound like it was undesirable and somewhat painful, something annoying she didn't want to get involved with. Now it's the only way of solidifying her marriage with Eric. She is willing to get this over with quickly. Her only problem is her husband continuously postponing the deed. Watching him closely as he eats, she has a lot to say. Upon noticing he is locked in her stare, Eric permits her to speak. Should she have anything she wants to say? He is a man whose life is on the line because of the Emperor right now. It makes no sense to her that it looks like she is the only one who is anxious about them needing to consummate. Finally, she speaks up, asking him when they got so close. He doesn't understand what she means and tries asking her what she means, but she doesn't respond. Right now, all she can think about is that the reason why Eric hadn't made out with her yet was that he planned to annul the marriage. She fears that he was never a kind person. The attitude he is putting up is only a trick. He is stalling for time to get rid of her. She is so zoned out that she is unable to hear him constantly calling to her. She is busy worrying that he isn't satisfied with her, but it's not just him. Whenever someone here treats her well, she gets 100 anxious thoughts or more. She is constantly feeling uneasy, worrying that to save herself from losing the nice family she has found, she needs to consummate the marriage as soon as possible and secure it. Living here reminds her of the distant time with her mother and the good maids that were originally at the palace. Tired of calling to her and not getting a response, Eric has to go to Misa and shake her a bit to return her to consciousness. He assumes she is unwell, until she opens up with the phrase, "Who would want to give his seed to someone like her?" Eric guesses that remark was Malachi's, and he is glad she opened up, giving him a chance to clear the air. He again repeats that they haven't gotten to that because they still don't know about themselves. She can't believe he is bringing this up again, so she quotes him as she asks if they can get to know each other and alleviate the discomfort he was talking about that time. Her words help him understand why she was so attentive that day at the greenhouse. She listened so she'd have words to use to bring the topic up on a later day. It's obvious she is impatient, but whatever the case is, he claims he needs time to get mentally ready for intimacy. A huge mic drop on her plans, although he'd like them to try to get to know themselves from that night. Grudgingly, Misa lets it slide, wondering if Eric is as experienced as she is when it comes to what they need to do. By bedtime, the couple get to talking again. In line with the promise he made her, he wants them to get to know a little about themselves each night going forward. He assures her that for every detail she shares, he'll reveal a similar one of his own. First, they discuss food preferences, then they talk about whether she enjoys being indoors or outdoors. That's where Miesa's patience grows thin, forcing her to imitate his mother while asking him to quit talking. For a second after the mimic, Eric is silent, processing that she just imitated his mother, before he bursts out laughing. Secretly, Misa admires the way he laughs, but he loves how she sounds when she calls his name. He'll like her to try it again, which is easy for her since she admires him. Nevertheless, the word when it comes out makes him blush. The girl gets praised for having such a nice voice. However, for being so cooperative, she gets a kiss to the forehead. That's arguably the first attempt of intimacy he has made towards her, making her want more. On his end, Eric requests she tell him more about herself from now on. Watching her, he confesses to himself that he has developed some level of curiosity towards her. The lady who was able to deceive everyone so perfectly since her childhood. He'd like to peer into her little mind and know everything about her. However, he goes to bed knowing that in the meantime, all he can rely on is questions. The following day, the mansion is in unrest. Servants panicking, Malachi's and Dial being scolded, then Eric comes in to meet his wife seemingly unconscious and injured. What happened? Let's go back a few hours to the morning. As usual, Misa's maids come to check on her like they always do, getting there to see that the couple still haven't gotten intimate. For a split second, Malachi's notices that something is off about Misa, but she doesn't know what. It doesn't take her long to let it go, though, and focus on the meeting she has with someone, a topic Dial wishes to discuss. The discussion triggers Misa to fear the maids are up to something, especially since Malachi's hopes the person she is meeting comes with something decent. She can't tell what that decent thing is, but it's sure the maids have lived in 10 years' worth of accumulated obsession. She lets them gossip about the 3 pillars of Esquilier. You know, the families that run the kingdom, showing their contempt for all 3. Although for now, their focus is the Cladnies. Dial is tired of her status with the family, wanting out as soon as possible. That's where Misa decides it's time to act. She fears that if she doesn't do something absurd today, she'll arouse suspicion, and starts laughing insanely. On their way to her room are 2 maids from the mansion, with things they believe she'll like when they hear strange sounds approaching. At a distance, it's unclear what they are hearing. Nevertheless, it becomes clear where the sound is coming from Misa soon enough, as she dashes past them in full speed. She is glad they saw her, as they will be serving as her witnesses, while they try to figure out what she is doing. Her initial plan is to tumble down the stairs, however, she can't do that. There's a maid by the stairs and a couple more around it. In a millisecond, her plans change, leading her to a room that has a balcony. There's no one around, icing on the cake of her plan. There's no one to stop her, allowing her to jump off the balcony onto a field of daisies she hopes will cushion her fall. Word of this gets to Eric fast, but his mother beats him to his wife's bedside and scolds the maids for letting Misa out of their sight, what she thinks is the main reason behind the accident. Eric can sense the seriousness in the atmosphere. Still, he plays it cool, turning to Gela, a member of the Holy Knights Church, to call a doctor. He doesn't know what fully transpired. Nonetheless, he thinks it's proper for Misa's original maids to be relieved of their duties and replaced with a maid of their own. He always needed an excuse to make that judgment. They just dropped one on his lap. As for reporting this case, he assigns Edie to accompany Malachise to the palace to report the incident to the Emperor, an event that might hinder her scheduled meeting. Anyways, he wants everyone out of the room, so the servants scurry off, leaving him and his mother. Hurt, she complains about the incompetence of paid help these days, looking to him to support her. Sadly, he can't. He knows what she is doing is projecting her desires of his late sister Rosier to Misa. Negligence is what led to his sister's death in the spring before her 10th birthday. What led to her passing? She was struck down by a drunk knight on a horse because she was out without a nanny. The little girl's passing took away his mother's sanity. From the stable boy who provided the horse to the drunk knight to their families, old people and children included, punishment for the death of her daughter was handed. The punishment: death. Seeing all this happen, his father criticized the excessiveness of his mother's actions and has been estranged from her ever since. He fears today, like that day, his mother is losing her sanity again. For her sake and the sake of the lives of many that might suffer his mother's unleashed anger, Eric promises to handle this by himself, because it is his duty. Before his mother can respond, Gela returns with the doctor's report and lets them know Misa faced no serious injuries. It's just mere bruises, meaning she shouldn't have any problems moving around. His mother is gladdened by the news, heaving a sigh of relief, after which she announces that she has to get some fresh air. As for Miesa, she is willing to leave her to Eric, trusting that he'll handle the matter skillfully. As soon as his mother gets out of the way, Eric confirms with Gela concerning the injuries, requesting to know the true severity. According to Gela, it's just as she said it is, except for the deep old wounds that are untreatable, and she saw no need to mention. Concerning confidentiality, she promises word of the injuries will not get out. She isn't someone to divulge personal information even when she is drunk. He acknowledges how professional she is, plus he trusts her to an extent. That's why he employs her at the spot. He wants her to resume work tomorrow and will inform Edie about her later on. With that, he lets her leave and he returns his attention to Misa, who he knows is not asleep. He is certain she had a reason for doing what she did, one he wants to know. But for some reason, telling him is hard at first, she just keeps lying there, silent, forcing him to pull closer and softly ask her to open up. He reminds her that she is safe with him, the push she needs to reveal that indeed there is a reason behind her actions, but it's difficult, though. Reluctantly, Eric lets it go, declaring that he is okay with her causing scenes by breaking stuff, but never wants to see or hear of her harming herself. He makes it clear his care for her safety and makes her promise she won't purposely put herself in harm's way again. Moving on from the matter, Eric urges Miesa to rest, permitting her to call to him should she feel hungry. With that, he looks to leave, but halts when he notices she has something to say. Cheerfully, he permits her to open up, which she does, revealing her curiosity about Gela in the process. Miesa suspects he has employed her to be her personal maid, something he didn't expect her to be curious about at a time like this. Nevertheless, since she is, he asks if Miesa dislikes her. He is glad she doesn't, because of the massive arsenal she possesses. Getting trained under a famous physician, top-notch trauma skills, a strong spirit that allows her to catch wolves with ease. She is more than her pretty face and stands out as a woman with a heavy jaw, as in she is hard to sway. To an extent, he trusts her, but he believes keeping her in the dark about Miesa actually being sane is the right thing to do. Aside from her, he looks to keep trustworthy people around him, like Cullen, who he asked to guard the door that time. He plans to keep using him, noting that he lost some fingers one time to enemy interrogation, yet he refused to spill. His strong wit makes him the most reliable person Eric knows, but he hasn't even told him about Miesa's secret. He wants her to understand that she is still in the clear, but her injuries are very real, so he plans to take a break from night duties until she gets better. Overjoyed to hear this, Miesa smiles earnestly, an expression he didn't see coming. Before he got to know her secret, she hardly showed any emotions. But following the big reveal, Eric notices that she reacts more often around him. He guesses it might be because he is the only one who knows her secret, but for whatever her reason is, he finds watching the constant switches in her mood relieving. Still, he has to go for a bit, handle some work and return. Meaning he'll be away for some hours. Surprisingly, that's okay with Miesa. All she looks forward to is his return and the possibility of them talking about a lot of things when he is back. She lights up, eyes filled with expectation that he is okay with, until she asks about intimacy. That annoys him and forces him to scold her. What he expects her to be thinking about now is recovery, that he makes clear. He admits to himself that sometimes her shallow thinking annoys him. But then he remembers that they are very different from each other and calls himself to order. Noticing how disappointed she looks the moment, plus how many times she brings up intimacy, Eric does the most gentlemanly thing he can think of, asking her why she is so eager about intimacy. Quoting various people, Miesa shares her fear of him not being interested in her or their rushed marriage, as well as plans to marry Lady Lacan that she worries are still in place. Eric can't believe what he just heard, but it sounds like his conversation with Amberic that day at the park has contributed to her fears. Whether or not he is wrong, what matters now is reassuring her, and that he does flawlessly, as he starts by informing her that he isn't looking to cancel the marriage. Concerning intimacy, again, he knows they have all the time in the world. Why rush? Why hurry into heated moments without knowing nothing about each other? He can tell she is having strange thoughts again, with a touch of unasked questions. Eric, willing to answer any question she can come up with, urges her to open up. There's no question she'd ask that he wouldn't answer, that's for sure. As they speak, the man is an open book to her. He let her go through classified documents, then, but now he is willing to do more than that, promising complete transparency on a later date. Today, he wants her to rest. She's been through a lot, meaning there's no running from this. Should she be unable to rest, he is willing to call in some maids. His reason for this suggestion is that he noticed she found comfort in hanging out with the maids. He is wrong, though. She only goes there to gather information. She's been using that trick since she was at the palace. It's helped her so much that she can safely say she knows everything. Who does when they do it, and his personal favorite, spicy love drama. According to Miesa, the very married head butler has feelings for Edie, the head maid. In the end, her confession shows him that every action she takes means something. Suddenly, from out of the blue, he requests they talk privately, causing her to instantly grow eager again. In her head, he wants to discuss intimacy, but she is bummed to find out that Eric actually wants to talk about the maid Malachi's and the money Miesa told him she paid to another maid. Initially, she plans to snub him, but that becomes hard with him continuously pushing. In the long run, she gives in and opens up about the maid's mystery meeting tomorrow with someone from one of the three pillars, but she isn't sure which. Salachis was wiped out by Vermalic, that we know. For sure, Chladni is too patriotic to side with a stranger, leaving Crispin in Eric's view. He gets all the more suspicious when he recalls his last meeting with Lacan Crispin, daughter of the Marquess. The figure in the shadows that day was Malachi's. He knew, but chose to say nothing of it. For her to be concerned with their discussion, he is sure she is working with the family and looks to put spies on both the maid and the Crispins, just to be sure. Miesa can't help but worry that the information she has given will send Eric on a dangerous path, but worry is quickly replaced with shock when she feels his lips on her cheek. Unaware of how to respond to it, she stares blankly at him, with cheeks cherry red. Aware of the shock she is experiencing, Eric explains that the kiss was his way of thanking her for answering his question. His reason doesn't help matters. If anything, it makes her rack her brain on the best response. It's no news she comes up empty. Even so, life goes on, peacefully on the surface. In the shadows, tensions are rising. For instance, the argument between Malachi's and Gela that Eric walks in on. He wasn't there at the start, but in Edie's presence, the maid is basically accusing the knight of wanting to use poison on Miesa, in the guise of ointment, showing that heavy jaw Eric praised her for having. She tastes the ointment, and welcomes Malachi's to have some if she still has any doubts. Both the maid and Edie are in awe after the stunt she pulled, yet the drama doesn't end there. Purposely ignoring their argument is Eric, who strolls to Miesa's bedside, interrupting her act and their argument when he parts her hair and warmly assures her he'll be back before lunch. They all probably find it odd that he is treating someone like Miesa so romantically because they are still in the dark about her secret. Still, he leaves his wife to them, trusting they'd take good care of her in his absence. On the outside, he looks like everything is okay, but deep down, his mind is not at rest. On his way to handle his business, he tries to understand why Miesa went to such lengths to harm herself yesterday. A part of him thinks she did it so he could get the palace maids off her, an assumption that might be true because that's exactly what he did after the accident. In any case, to fully understand her intentions, first he needs to remove her from the scope of her brother and everyone else. The rest will follow gradually after that. On that note, he gets to his office, summons Amberic, and then suggests he handle night training for a bit. As a man who hates responsibility, he is opposed to helping out, claiming he has a lot on his plate. Eric, aware that the "a lot" he speaks of is chasing after women, refuses to listen. In a serious tone, he orders his cousin to handle the assigned duties before kicking him out of his office. There's no two ways about this. He needs to be close to Miesa until she recovers. The next thing on his agenda is the spies. Cullen reports that he has put competent knights to spy on both Malachi's and the Crispins. Since that's settled, he moves to his final agenda for the day, by asking Cullen to summon Edie without letting his mother know. Word gets to the headmaid almost as quickly as it is sent, and she responds by arriving at Eric's office in a haste. The servant that passed the information of his summons to her asked her to go quietly, enough reason for her to worry. Looking at her, under his breath, Eric praises her for being a competent headmaid. He has always understood why she was favored by his mother. Finally done with the silent praises, he gets to his reason for calling her, which is the palace maids. He is grateful she played a huge role in ensuring Miesa's maids were dismissed, as punishment for them not being able to prevent her accident. Edie didn't just escort Malachi's to the palace to report what happened. She made sure she secured documents solidifying her dismissal and also made sure the report given was as it happened. Still, they had a problem. Vermalik was going to send replacements. Should the maids they are expecting be the same as Malachi's and Dial, their plan would be in vain. He makes it known that he needs her help to prevent that, which is news to her. She doesn't see how she can fit into his agenda, no surprise there. What is surprising, however, is that Edie has 12 years' worth of combat experience. Much more years than he has put in. Not to mention that she has been in the capital and is flawless when it comes to gathering information. She has been helping his mother to gather info on other families, standing as his mother's major informant, yet she politely tries to dodge the responsibility. Knowing the man he is, she concludes he is perfect for the job, intending to use his mother as an out, but he stops her by confessing he ran it by his mother and she granted him permission to use her help. It's not some secret op, but for his mother's sake, he still wants her to keep it between them until further notice. So, what does he need from good maid Edie? Remember what Miesa told him about Malachi's bribing a headmaid? Well, he wants her to look into the matter to discover the link between the two. Edie admits this is a difficult task he has given her, but at the end of the day, it's not impossible. She can carry it out, but in return, she'll like access to the master bedroom. She won't say why, but they come to an agreement after which they go their separate ways. Edie, back to her duties, and Eric back to his wife, who is currently coloring with Gela. The knight thinks she has found a way to calm Miesa, unaware she is being fooled, especially after Eric plays along by promising to read books to her from now on. He alleges she'll have a good night's rest if she is being read to, and Gela gets overzealous, wanting to pick out the right fairy tale for Eric. Her enthusiasm is then trampled upon by Eric as he dismisses her for the day, instructing her to return tomorrow morning. It's not just that, he wants her to do maid work while she is away, something she wishes to address but stays silent about until she exits the room. When outside, in whispers she releases all pent-up frustration for him, wanting her to do both the job of Miesa's personal maid and that of Miesa's personal doctor. She had zero plans of being a maid, post-war and aimed at focusing on her medical practice, yet here she is getting no extra pay for extra duties. If she had stayed at her village, she knows she would have been able to focus on treating people, but then Cullen exposes something that makes her feel better. She is getting paid separately for each service she is rendering. Since that's the case, she is relieved, wanting to leave, but is frightened to a standstill when the door behind her swings open. It's Eric. She fears he heard all her whining, but he didn't. He came to remind her of Miesa's dirty laundry. As soon as he drops the memo, Eric returns to the room, while Gela pleads with Cullen to forget her careless speech earlier. It was because of how businesslike she is in her speech, she says, but he didn't even need an explanation. He had heard all commanders act the way she did, so he wasn't surprised. Speaking of commanders, Gela feels free enough to discuss Eric with Cullen, specifically his relationship with Miesa, his wife. She tries to drop tips she feels will make the marriage better, but for someone who has never seen how Eric behaves with his wife, he doesn't think he is the best judge of character here. He does, however, know that his commander is a man of character who shows proper etiquette at all times, and she agrees, stating that even when Eric is angry, he is never rude to them. On his end, she can see the marriage is safe, leaving Miesa's end. According to Gela, if she stays without hiding anything from him, they'll be fine, recounting that he is a man who takes faithfulness seriously. If so, Miesa and Eric are on the right path, given that he is the only one she is being real with. That's why he had to ask if she truly enjoyed painting. She doesn't respond, though, wishing to talk about book preferences instead. For now, she doesn't want fairy tales, like Gela suggested they get for her. She wants mature books, novels. Her husband agrees that such literature will improve her speech. However, she wants more than that. She lacks basic manners, so conversation isn't possible. Someone said that to her, and by quoting it, she lets him know that the statement hurt her real bad. Fortunately for Miesa, Eric has her solution: books containing tips for basic manners. He'll get it for her later, but now his focus is on assisting her with bathing. He's got the water ready, everything is set, yet she turns away from him as soon as he reaches for her. Trying to understand what she is doing, he calls to her and she replies with one word: embarrassing. Once upon a time, she had no shame. Now she is embarrassed by his face. It makes her uncomfortable since it turns red during baths. She points at the door and asks him to leave, preferring to bath herself. For the first time in her life, concerned, Eric tries to talk her out of this, reminding her that her hand is hurt and because of that, she might have a hard time on her own. Does it work? Nope, Miesa doesn't budge. She is determined. So he decides to strike a simple deal with her. He'll help her with her hair, after which he'll leave the rest to her. Seeing nothing wrong with that, she obliges, wasting no time to get into the tub. Eric, on the other hand, takes his time to do her hair, dropping topic after topic to get a response from her. At his final discussion, he talks about how she doesn't respond much. For her own good, at least when they are together, he urges her to try to speak even a few simple words out loud. Practice makes perfect, he says, wanting to continue, only to get stopped by her as she frantically orders him to leave. Eric can't help but smile at Miesa's push for independence, leaving her with the advice that she should call to him if she needs anything. Outside, Eric waits patiently for Miesa, almost panicking when he hears a loud thud, if not for the splashing sounds that follow. Like a proud father, he smiles at what sounds like independence, but when she steps out of the bathroom, she is not smiling. In fact, her bath was so terrible that she never wants to do it on her own again. I mean, she couldn't even wrap her towel well, but he's still smiling. Anyways, until further notice, Miesa wants Gela on bathing duty. She might end up getting her ready for bed too. Nevertheless, tonight he does that for her, drying her up and getting her a change of clothes, after which he tucks her in bed. Honestly, this is the best time for a proper couple's heart-to-heart, so Eric uses it to ask her about her day. Gela, good, is the response he gets. Further proof that Mesa enjoys the night's company. As for her living arrangements, she is also comfortable with it. Compared to the palace, this place is heaven. She gets to be free and eat actual food, as opposed to the grass she survived on back then. Eric, the second he hears her mention grasses, suspects the perpetuator was Malachis, and out of curiosity, he asks if the evil maid had been serving her from the onset. According to Miesa, she had her and 4 others, but they are 2 now. Were the rest as bad as these 2? Eric can't say for sure, but he complains about their attitude in a tone that makes Miesa fear he wants to do something about them. It's not like she cares about the evil maids or anything like that, it's just Vermalik was going to know if he went up against them. She worries that the king might harm Eric, so he decides to switch things up and talk about her speech. He commends her for speaking more fluently, a compliment she takes even though she complains that she would have done even better if Eric didn't hinder one of her training sessions one night. At the time, he thought she was planning to leave the room, but now that the truth is out, he is cloaked in shame. To compensate her for his interference and thank her for opening up, Eric grants Miesa permission to go out of the room whenever she likes, adding a kiss to the head to his list of gifts. The days that follow are unlike the previous ones, with Miesa's communication skills growing better by each passing day, along with her curiosity and the amount of questions she asks per day. Simple questions like what is this or that, or difficult questions on a variety of topics, whatever the case may be, she was up for it. Sharing her curiosity makes her more chatty and her speech more natural, unlike her original manner of speaking. Plus, whenever she feels she does good, she quickly asks for a kiss. By the way, she's healed up now, and Eric is so impressed by her that he desires them speaking more informally. There's no shame there, they are a married couple and it'll build their bond, he replies when she seeks a reason for a request. But she doesn't get it. Last she checked, she is royalty and he is Margraves. How can she be informal? Eric, elated by her statement, laughs loud and hard. He is amused. She still thinks she is royalty, regardless. He explains to her that that's not the case. Once they got married, her status dropped to noble level, because she warped into his social status and not him into hers. To Miesa, as long as it means she gets to live here under these wonderful conditions, she doesn't mind being treated like a noble lady. Watching her, her hopeful smile, lovely eyes, attentiveness, he can't believe he didn't notice sooner all the things he loves about her. His wife, unaware of his thoughts, reveals that knew how kind he was a while ago, so she did a good job at protecting him at the palace when her brother accused him of treason. If not for her, he and his house may have been wiped out by now, or worse. Sure, if he didn't get married to her, he would have been clear of Vermalik's tricks, but everything about Miesa right now makes him kick the thought aside and confess that he is forever grateful to her for saving him. Right now, he is so drunkenly in love with her that even he doesn't notice the air is changing, and they are pulling closer, until he asks her to close her eyes. Chapter 21. What comes next is a blur to the couple. A kiss that would have been the perfect kickoff for intimacy, if not for the shy look Miesa has on her face that cranks Eric up again. Once he is done laughing, our boy tries to set the mood again, continuing from where he left off. The longer they go on, the more it looks like Miesa is about to get the one thing she kept asking for. But come morning, she is the same as she was yesterday. Nothing serious went down, but her mood seems different. It's so unusual that Malachi notices it and points it out, leaving Diala to suspect she is in a good mood because of the new personal maid she got, as in Gela. Little do they know that they are far from the truth. Miesa is actually bubbly because of the moment she had with Eric, although she admits to herself that he knows nothing about intimacy. She fears trouble is right around the corner, should his lack of experience keep preventing intimacy. That's when Gela arrives for duty. Her original maids, watching their replacement step in, are annoyed, but they step back to let her do her work, which right now is getting Misa washed and changed. She declares that the clothes she washed yesterday didn't dry, but she was able to get some dry ones on her way here. While explaining, Gela notices marks on Miesa's body and leans forward to observe it. Firstly, she thinks it's eczema, but that thought is quickly overshadowed by shock when she realizes what it actually is. Seems the maids also know what it is, but where's Eric with all this happening? He's at his office, somewhere in the estate, discussing with Edie about the replacement maids from the palace. He expected them to have arrived by now, but according to the head maid, they may not even arrive at all. She complains that the palace seems reluctant to send a replacement and she couldn't push it for fear of looking suspicious. Come to think of it, Malachi has no special abilities. From the background check Edie did on her, she learnt of her history of stealing that was so serious that at one point she was caught trying to steal valuables from the imperial palace. As for the bribe she paid to the head maid of the palace, Edie learned that it was to help her keep her job as an imperial maid. There's no reason for them not to replace her, following the report, so the fact that they refused to do so is even more suspicious. That aside, Edie also reports that during her investigation, she noticed the Viscountess of Crispin, Lady Manor, often blessed the head maid of the imperial palace with gifts, earning her favor in the process because the head maid of palace loves flashy things. She also maintains a flashy lifestyle, so it was easy for Edie to get a list of all the jewelry Lady Manor got for the corrupt head maid. Eric appreciates Edie for the good work, shifting his focus to the documents Edie gave him while she stands there waiting for permission to speak. Once granted, she airs out, but we'll get to their little chat later. For now, let's focus on Miesa and Gela, who are spending time on the lawn together on this warm afternoon. As usual, the little lady is busy with child's play. Meanwhile, Gela can't shake her thoughts off the marks she saw on her. With them, she assumes Eric got intimate with Miesa and fears that he must have lost his mind by doing so. She still thinks the girl is incapable of properly processing what's happening in her surroundings, and advises her to lash out and bite Eric should he pull close to her again. In the meantime, she fears she can't be silent about what she saw and considers reporting to someone, an idea that makes Miesa feel guilty. She can't say anything though, and doesn't even need to because Gela remembers that her and Eric are married, so no one will do anything should she report. Right now, you'd think she'll look the other way, but she doesn't. She just sits by Miesa, guilty that she can't think of anyone who'd help her out. Again, she doesn't need help. The knight just doesn't know that, and out of pity, she admits that she pities Miesa. Maybe even more than she pities her younger sister, who she concluded was the most pitiable person alive. From her evaluation, the two are very similar, Miesa and her younger sister Tuli. See, Gela has 7 siblings, some older than her, others younger. A family like that has a lot of offspring, which means more mouths to feed. But then there was an epidemic in the village, and Tully got ill, adding medicine to the family's budget alongside feeding and other necessaries. But the medicine wasn't the only problem. The problem was Tully didn't get better. She suffered high fever and ended up with Miesa's condition. The only difference is, Miesa is acting, and Tully was actually ill. At the time, her father was barely getting by. He was an assistant blacksmith. They all knew him raising a sick child with such little money coming in from work was hell, but again, that was the least of their problems. The major issue they had to worry about was that even if the girl grew up, she wouldn't be able to earn enough on her own. Taking that into consideration, one day the poor man went out with Tully and returned alone later in the day. Gela was too young to understand back then, but when she got older, she learned her beloved younger sister had gone forever, to a place where she could never return from. Her passing hurts her till date, and whenever she opens up about it, People who have never experienced the sting of such a loss only give sarcastic remarks. Maybe Miesa also doesn't get it, because from that heartwarming story, all she picks is a new discovery that families in the Esquilier Empire are comfortable with killing their own. Continuing with her story, Gela says she is usually okay with telling this story to horses and dogs, but is glad Miesa was patient enough to listen to her. She thanks the girl for her time, a remark that leaves our Miesa blushing. For a long time, she had been compared to a monkey or rat. The names made her feel uncomfortable. But here is Gela, unintentionally comparing her to dogs and horses, but strangely, it doesn't feel bad. Watching her brighten up, she is moved to open up about something. What stops her is Eric, arriving from out of the blue. He had been searching for Miesa and assumes she's had a day, unaware that Gela is annoyed that he came just when she was about to say something important. To her annoyance, he asks her to leave, which she does without wasting time. Focusing on Miesa now, he asks if she had fun, but gets snubbed, so he moves closer to see if she can hear him. Sure enough, she can. Still, she chose not to reply. From the look of things, she is annoyed, but things only get weird when she instructs Eric to stop coming to pick her up. Eager to know why she is bringing this up, Eric asks Miesa for her reason. Shyly, she asks if it's okay for her to take up his time this way since he is so busy, but he has no idea what she means by taking up his time. Nevertheless, that's not all that's bothering her. The second thing is how no one says anything when Eric is present, reserving all their comments for when he is away. They say a lot while she is out with Gela, and just now, even Gela aired out about him. Aside from her 2 complaints, she confesses that she had fun today, yet he doesn't look happy. She can't tell why, until he suggests that since she'll be spending lots of time outside with Gela, they should get her better clothes. Feeling on her dress, he confesses that although she changes clothes frequently, they can do better than this awful fabric. Curious, he asks her if there is any special reason why they make her wear poor quality clothes. He'd like her to use better fabric at least, but there's actually a reason why she gets such poor treatment. Shockingly, there is. The original plan before bringing her into the Chladni family was to use her as a Trojan horse. The palace secretly hoped that if she was treated insignificantly, they would think she posed a threat to them and show their real colors to her. Unfortunately for them, that's not how things played out. They treat her well, although the palace still hopes they maintain resentment towards her. Problem is, she can't tell Eric this, but she does tell him that she doesn't mind the clothes since she still has to act strange. Also, she intends to dig a hole again tomorrow under the Mahjong tree, like she did today. She doesn't want to do that in proper clothes and ruin them. For someone who doesn't look like she has problems, there's a lot going on in Miesa's head at any given time, because she has to be mindful of her words and actions. Any mistake and she might say or do something that would provoke her brother. No one wants that, that's for sure. Anyways, he's heard her and plans to support her by arranging softer fabric for her. He also wants her to come with digging tools next time, since he is against her using her bare hands to dig. For Eric, it might just be another Tuesday, but to Miesa, it is the first time someone is respecting the actions she usually takes without hesitation. Yet that's not everything. He also notices that she looks healthier, even upon the slight sunburn she is suffering. Until now, no one recognized these small changes in her, and somehow he isn't done. He goes on to tell her that when they first met, he was worried because she looked so pale and fragile, but he is glad that compared to then, now she's become high-spirited. Miesa silently is covered in a level of comfort she has never experienced before. She is glad she is getting to enjoy the scent of grasses in this bright afternoon and prays that her brother doesn't disrupt her newfound peace. However, unexpectedly, someone does disrupt her peace, and that's the gardener. He's come to check the bird that made a nest on one of the trees, to make sure it wasn't getting disturbed by the branches. Eric was aware of the birds beforehand and praises him for his hard work, a compliment he takes, but doesn't look too happy about. It's unclear why, but as he leaves, Miesa returns to her thoughts. She has noticed that maybe because Eric brought her into a new life, his words often seem strange to her. But that aside, she wants to know if Eric knows the man who just left. She complains that every time she digs holes under this tree, he looks unhappy. Could it be that he left with that sad look on his face because he noticed today's hole? She guesses it is, and he agrees, adding that no gardener in the world would be happy if she dug this deep beside a tree they are grooming. It's a firm response from him, like it is whenever she brings up playful remarks, yet he isn't done. It's obvious he isn't offended by the hole and has never used words that offend her, so he makes it clear that if the gardener spoke to her rudely because of the holes she digs, he'll punish him. Could he be real? This man with an ever-warm smile on her face. He is like a prince drawn straight out from a fairy tale, merciful, fair, and wise. So good that she doesn't know she is lost in thought until he stretches a hand to her and suggests they head inside since it is getting hotter. At night, much to Miesa's disappointment, Eric is at it again, his version of intimacy that she doesn't approve of. She finds it discomforting that upon how uncomfortable she is feeling about it, He is making her answer questions, like what she likes the most out of all the things he does for her. She is annoyed that he refuses to listen to what she wants. Still, she reveals that she likes being carried around. Really, she hates the talking, writing it off as unnecessary. At a time like this, when it feels like they are both risking their lives, Misa finds it suffocating that it feels like it's just her suffering this. And Eric refuses to help out, cutting off intimacy whenever she fails to answer his questions properly. The man is too much to handle, pushing her to bend to his will with his stubbornness. Annoyingly in all this, he keeps that smug smile on his face. Back to his question, she tells him that she liked being carried because she usually walks like she is weak-footed. It makes her leg cramp if she does it for too long. He saves her from that whenever he carries her around. Eric's smile grows brighter after she gives an answer, but there's one thing that keeps bothering her, the fact that he hasn't gotten down with her yet. Malachi's and Dial's harsh words play back instantly. She starts to think it's one out of two things. Either he doesn't want to give his seed to her, something that shouldn't matter in the life or death situation they are in, or he has had a change of heart towards her. Just to be sure, she asks him if they are lovers. In her understanding, a man and a woman become lovers when there is a special connection between them. She wants to be sure her and Eric have something special, and he confirms that by declaring that not only are they lovers, but they are married. He thinks Miesa would stop there, but she doesn't, fearfully asking him if he can be in love with someone else while being married to her. He quickly assumes this question has something to do with what the maid said to her. He answers it no less, revealing that there are times when married couples have relationships with other people outside their marriage. However, that's not his thing. She is his special woman, and it will always be only her. Still, he hopes she does the same, having only him as her dear one. Thinking back to his father and how close they used to be, he airs out his failure to understand infidelity. In his eyes, it's not just about breaking chastity, but also about disregarding trust. Reminiscing on his father's betrayal makes Eric get emotional and hug Miesa even tighter than he did before, stunning her to the extent that she ends up calling to him. Finally, back in the room, Eric notices that Miesa used a different accent to call to him, a Gazan accent. With Gazan being a small village in Kladny, he guesses she learnt it from Gela, her possible connection to the place. His guess isn't wrong, and instead of finding the accent weird, he thinks it's cute, sparking another round of intimacy. Like other times, Miesa can't help but question his methods again, especially since there was nothing like this in what the priestess read to her about consummating. She thinks this is a waste of time, but also something that stirs up inexplicable emotions in her. The night passes, like others, landing the mansion in a bright morning where the maids swarm Miesa and give her the bib they made for her. They are all excited about it, and even more excited when she shows she likes it by chewing on it, but Edie watches expressionlessly. From the distance, she stays focused on the conversation she had with Eric the day she reported back to him. You know, the one we promised to get back to. It wasn't easy for her that day, but she managed to advise him to get a mistress and shift his focus from Miesa. Cullen was there listening in as Eric rebuked the idea. He didn't think it showed loyalty. Still, she thought that didn't matter. It made no sense to her that he dumped night affairs on Amberic to spend more time with someone she thought he couldn't communicate with. She feared that by doing that, he was giving opportunities to people from their other branches who were eyeing his position as family head. Edie was aggrieved that all he was focusing on was replacing the maids of a Miesa who lazed around all day. He let Edie pour out her heart, so she took the opportunity to go as far as addressing the hole Miesa dug under the tree. Edie thinks she did that out of displeasure because he neglected her and accused him of spoiling Miesa. You'd think she'd stop there, but no. She went on to call the poor girl an immoral woman who was distracting him and didn't deserve his efforts towards replacing her maids. It was like she was the only one in the mansion with eyes to see that Eric was messing up, making her anxious in the process. But then he spoke up. Firstly, he addressed the whole Malchi's issue, reminding her that initially it was her who pointed fingers at the maid. She claimed something was off about her and he looked into it. Next, Eric turned to Cullen and asked if aside from night training, he had neglected anything to spend time with Miesa. The reply was a negative, as Eric had been able to solve the territory's food problem by handing over all the scrap metal spoils of war they took to Marquis Hetav. In return, he gave Kladny years' worth of food. It was a simple trade by barter. Hetav lacked metal but had food items to spare, and he lacked food but had metal. Away from that, with Eric, they got 2 functioning mines aside from the Halleck iron mine, but their territory's forges lacked manpower to even repair their own weapons. Lastly, Cullen brings up Amberic, who she fears will take Eric's place. He took over night training, right? Wrong. All he did was sleep all day, losing credibility in the eyes of the knights by the day. His lack of zeal makes them compare him with Eric daily, with a lot of them preferring Eric to him. To think he did all that while hanging out with Miesa any chance he got? Edie stood there soaked in shame, yet he didn't scold her. He only encouraged her to stay strong since she was in a critical position and they needed her. His kindness, after all she said, allowed the head maid to apologize for overstepping. That day, she was reminded that he was always someone who prioritized tasks with rational judgment. His delivery was always flawless until he met Miesa. They are at a time when the struggle for succession is active, and all she sees Miesa as is a distraction. Sure, he is handling his duties, but she is still convinced his judgments are being clouded by his wife. Normally, she doesn't visit this wing of the mansion, but she came to search for Eric and gets caught by the maids before she finds him. Eagerly, they ask her what she thinks about the bib they made for her, but she is too annoyed to reply and puts on a fake smile. She can't be happy when she thinks about how even her boss, Madame Thaliessa, has been bewitched by Miesa. At first, she thought it was mere sympathy, but with the way she scolded the maids after Miesa's accident and other things, she began to understand that she was freely losing her reason often. In matters that concerned the girl, observing the maids and Miesa again, cold sweat of worry runs down Edie's cheeks. Because she doesn't know what to do, even though she is convinced Eric and his mother are not in their right minds because of her. As she thinks of a way out of this problem, the day continues, and by afternoon, the couple are having lunch together. With Eric's help, Miesa creates a convincingly messy table, and then she asks for permission to go outside. Not just to the lawn, but outside the mansion's walls. She got this inspiration from a book Gela was reading that led her to understand that there are many people on the streets. To give her the best experience, he thinks going to the slums will be a good idea, but she just wants to go to the place where shops are lined up selling goods, with no gardens around. It's a market, but she calls it a shopping street and wants to know if all of them are like that. For some reason, Eric doesn't respond to her. He looks like he is overthinking, so she assumes she isn't allowed to go out and begs him to let her see this place. In a jiffy, her begging pays off, and Eric arranges for them to ride into the city. It didn't take long to get Miesa ready and in the carriage, and also to get himself ready, but they are stopped by his mother, who is made to believe that he wants to go on the joyride for himself. Furthermore, she thinks Miesa is asleep and fears she would be anxious if she wakes up during the ride, for fear that he is taking her somewhere unknown. Although he tries to brush off her worries by claiming that since he is with her, there will be no issues, she still suggests they take Edie along. By her calculations, it's better 2 people handle her during this new experience than 1 person. Firmly, Eric tries to shake her off, but she latches on even more, and he ends up agreeing to take her along, much to Gela's astonishment. She doesn't know what to expect during the ride, only to get to the city square and realize she won't even be part of it. Eric instructs her to leave them for 3 hours, promising to return to that spot to get her when the time elapses. He urges her to come back on time, but instead of moving, she just stands there. Normally, she'd be happy he just gave her a break, but she just can't bring herself to be happy about this when she doesn't trust Eric being on his own with Miesa. Eventually, she leaves, though, promising to come back on time, while silently praying for Miesa's safety. Little does she know that Miesa, as soon as she hears they are alone, is overjoyed. She is amazed by the bustling street, confirming that, as Gela's book said, there are a lot of people. Pleased by her bubbly mood, he turns tour guide and asks her if she recognizes the white building on the hill. It's the temple they got married at, he says, but she doesn't remember it because of the sedative that she took that day. Hearing this, Eric feels pity for her, as he realizes that she has never gone out sober until today. All this might just be a familiar sight to him, but to her it's all an amazing sight, which he is glad to enjoy with her, making her comfortable as they continue the ride. Watching her, Eric suddenly starts to wonder what the world is like in Miesa's eyes. Of course he'd love to see, but watching her ask about various things during the ride, he decides to stick with enjoying the moment and not disturb her right now. Sincerely, he hopes that today will leave her with a good memory that she'll cherish for many days to come. Snapping him out of his rosy thoughts is Miesa when she gets curious about something again. When he observes it, he realizes that it is a cart and explains what it is and what it is used for: selling goods. Ultimately, he believes goods from them aren't the best quality, but she has something else to say. Sure, he writes off the quality, but that prompts her to ask if goods that aren't Chladni standard are still usable. It's a vague question, no doubt, but he is smart enough to understand it and explains that Chladni is in the state it is in because the young men who used to hunt and farm were away for 12 years, fighting the war. Then the house was getting by, but then they all returned post-war, meaning they had more mouths to feed. Over 17,000 men more. Eric can tell Miesa, due to the time she spent on his lap, secretly reading documents developed the misunderstanding in her little head that the Chladni house isn't in a good financial state. It's hard to imagine her focusing on reading complicated documents, since she even has problems understanding small words and occasionally asks questions about them. Anyways, her lack of proper understanding is the basic reason for her misunderstanding here. There is also the food shortage to blame for her misjudgment, but he has the time to clear some air around her thoughts on the situation. With that, he continues, telling her that the war affected trade, taxes, and surplus funds, but it's all been resolved. He looks forward to the coming harvest, believing it will be plentiful now that everyone has returned to their duties. He expected that explanation to get her bubbly, but it doesn't. Instead, it leaves her looking stunned, meaning two things. Either her misunderstanding runs deep, or she feels like something is lacking. If the latter is the case, he guesses she thinks the mansion isn't all that fancy, and explains that it is the way it is because his parents pay no attention to extravagance. As for her other misunderstanding, he shares with her that the Chladni house has in their possession 3 working iron mines, fluent trade through the southern seaports, and blue fox fur that is only gotten from the rare foxes that exist in the borderlands. That's also a main source of income for his house. To his astonishment, she reacts in a shocked manner, and he starts to feel like he acted proudly and just flaunted his wealth to his wife. Since he is the humble man he is, he asks her to forget all he said and apologizes for causing her any worry. Concerned, he switches the topic and asks if there is anything uncomfortable about her stay at the mansion. She immediately admits there isn't. The only issue was that she thought there was a food shortage and started to save snacks little by little. She is pained that she is finding this out now. If she had known back then, she would have eaten to her heart's content, but that's still possible, right? The rest of the ride is smooth and warm, and it gets to a point where Eric decides to step out. For safety purposes, he orders the carriage driver to guard the carriage door with his life. Miesa is inside, and he doesn't want a sob story. He does, however, want to get pastry for his wife. It's something they discussed before they took the stop, and he promised to get her as much munchies as she'd like. In return, she was to stay in the carriage and be on her best behavior. That's something she is doing now. The problem is, she is covered in the guilt of thinking his family was poor when they weren't. She believes she has been a fool, finding her earlier conclusion funny to even herself. It's not like she has a glittering past. Sure, she is royalty, but in the early days at the palace, she stayed with her mom in a small, dark cubicle. She doesn't remember much from that time, but recalls the king then, her father, watching them with disdain, and then her being dragged to the central palace later on. We all know she started her acting as a child, yet during that time she maintained a high standard. She endured hellish treatment, no doubt, but she held steadfastly to the reminder that she was royalty. Without that hope, it felt like she would never have anything in the future, but in the end, she got the life of her dreams. Not because she was royalty, but after she stopped being a member of the royal family, per her marriage to Eric. Watching him from the curtain of the carriage and listening to the whispers of the villagers, she smiled at the thought of the marriage she feared becoming such a peaceful life. Still, while she is watching from the window, she notices that the gathering suddenly realize Eric is in their midst, from the Chladni crest on his suit. Because of how rarely available he is, they didn't notice him on time and have only good comments about him when he goes into the store to get the pastry. For most, it's their first time seeing him. Since it's his first public appearance in the capital as an adult, that's understandable. Of all the good they have to say about Eric, they focus most of their attention on his good looks and it's the reason why he has been the subject of countless rumors. They also believe he is different from all the other nobles, yet Miesa doesn't see any of that. She doesn't think her husband is that remarkable, but with his praises growing more and more, she ends up getting infected by their words. She can see that everyone is so favorable towards him, and it's not just because of his looks. They eventually head to other topics that highlight his greatness, like the war they just won. According to one member of the crowd, his father praised Eric for being the main reason why they won the war. According to the man, had it been he wasn't there, it's safe to say they would all have been goners. He was the hero of the victory and, in turn, the hero of their village. And that's when Miesa starts to see why people cheer him on so much. Their faces are brimming with awe, and that makes them happy, until they start talking about the wedding. From the way the sound and the fear in their voices, it's obvious that the normal folk among the villagers were not let into the wedding hall. They still can't believe that there was so much tight security at the national wedding. In earnest, they pity Eric for such treatment, but when he comes out the store, those feelings get switched with awe again. The villagers agree that they have no right to pity someone of such a great noble family. They are glad they finally get to see his face properly and cheer him on, but that's not what Miesa focuses on. Her attention is actually on the 2 women who had dark, somber expressions. Those expressions were familiar to her. She got them from Amberic, some of the maids, the women at the monthly poetry reading, and many others, when she was with Eric. She used to think those looks had something to do with Eric identifying with her. Now they have reminded her that she is the weakest link in his life. That feeling alone is like an invisible force striking her on the head, so she takes the hit, pulls away from the window, and sits there mopping. Just then, he arrives at the carriage and asks her if he had her waiting for long. He admits she got worried when he noticed the crowd outside, but she is busy observing his face. There are no signs of agitation, meaning he must be used to this hospitality. Unaware of her mood, Eric explains that he ended up getting more snacks than he planned to, the reason why his box is so large. But that's not where her head is at. It is focused on the bad looks he is receiving because of her, and that hurts. Before now, she didn't want to admit it, but this marriage is clearly satisfactory to her, but not him. She feels sorry for him, mostly because she sees herself as the main contributor to his misfortune. In her head, she has ruined his life. In her head, she feels wrong. But what about her? Who feels sorry for her? She asks herself. Up until now, she has lived like a pest. Yet she has no memory of anyone who is sorry for her situation. That stings so much. Nevertheless, she refuses to open up about her feelings, leaving Eric in the dark, talking about the stuff he got for her. Of all the many items, it happens that the one that catches her attention is the Halrite tart. Miesa is visibly disgusted by it for some deep reasons she hasn't exposed yet, and orders him to throw it away without even opening the box. She screams that she doesn't want it, and she no longer likes sweets. Despising the entire box of goodies Eric got her makes her distaste vivid. The reason is still her thoughts about how she messed up his life, and she expects him to be angry after the stunt she just pulled, but he actually isn't. In a calm tone, he points out that something must have happened while he was away. He wants to know what it is, staring at her with piercing eyes, but she tries to wave it off by claiming she just isn't fond of sweets anymore. Stand back? Never. To her surprise, Eric pulls forward and declares that he doesn't mind whether she eats the snacks or not. His major concern is that her mood is strikingly different from how it was before he left. He makes it clear that he is asking her what happened while he was away. He reveals that he may not have observed her for a long time, but he has noticed she is more clear-headed than he thought. That made him see that she doesn't act without reason, but the more it looks like he gets her, the more she wants him to scold her. PTSD. Guys, she still hasn't healed from her past wounds, but he is unaware of that and firmly presses for her to open up. He wants to know if there is anything she can't stand, as he is willing to take care of it immediately, but she hates it that he observes her. She can't understand why he does, yet she is trying to and ends up hyperventilating as a result of overthinking. That's when Eric sees that it's worse than he thought. Disregarding her initial mood, he shifts his focus to her current one and calls to her frantically, but she doesn't respond until she passes out. Holding her closely, he scrambles his mind thinking about what to do, unaware of the fact that it's all an act. From pretending to faint, to breaking character in his presence and revealing her secret, Miesa beats herself up, certain she has made a mistake. She knows that no matter how tightly they hold on to each other, he is still the only one who knows all her secrets. The truth is that she is in a position where she needs his cooperation the most. She spent a lot of time acting like a child. Now, because of him, she has gotten too used to being treated like a human, causing her to develop pride and unnecessary emotions. He calls herself stupid for falling this hard and losing track of reality, and reminds herself that she needs to get along with him by all means. First things first, she intends to smile at everything he says to her when they get home, hoping that'll help her. Then she peeps to see if he is staring at her. Sure enough, he is. Their eyes meet and she is startled, but he doesn't say a word. He just sits there patting her head, while she thinks about how his face, that usually harbored a stern expression, now houses a soft one. Next thing she knows, Edie arrives. They just got to the village square to get her, and as she enters, they begin to head home. Normally, she'd stay quiet, but the curtains are down, the carriage is dark, and she doesn't trust him. So she asks why the place is so dark. Does Eric intend to snub her question? Does he not? We'll never know, because he notices something not too far away that catches his attention. We'll get to know what it is later, but after that brief moment of suspense, they rode home peacefully, with no drama at all, until they got to the mansion. Still in the carriage, Eric notices his father, Margrave, is heading out. He can tell he is going to see his mistress again today. Although Margrave saw his son, he ignored him, so Eric decides to head out first. As soon as he comes down, he remembers the day Edie spoke up, and how she advised him not to show blind loyalty to his father. He wonders why this thought came to his mind suddenly. Can he say he is loyal to a father who doesn't even greet him anymore? A father who is supposedly the head of the Cladney house, who is supposed to be rational and make decisions for the family based on sound reasoning? A father who he doubts is fulfilling his role as head of the family. Thinking about Edie's words some more, he can see some truth in it. Maybe it's time for him to cut off the rotten parts, as there comes a time when that is necessary. For a brief second, he forgets about everyone. But Gela shows up with Miesa and reminds them that they are still there. She also reminds him of the box of snacks, which he asks her to take. As for Miesa, he takes her from Gela and asks the knight if she knows how to use a dagger. Faced with a question like that out of the blue, the knight thinks the best reply is no, but she concludes that it'll be right to be honest to her captain, and so she tells him she is skilled with the blade. On hearing this, he leaves fulfilled, but she is left questioning what just happened. Unknown to them, the palace maids are upstairs watching. Malachais finds the union strange, of late, because seeing them so close is odd when they don't seem like lovers. Diale, on her end, thinks Miesa might just be Eric's type. At least that's how it looks until it's clear that they aren't talking about Miesa, but Gela. They think he took her out and secretly got her gifts, and Malachis makes up her mind to make them lovers, if it turns out they aren't already. Eric, at his room with Miesa, is glad they are finally alone and reaches to her, thinking she is pretending to be asleep. From her startled reaction, he can see that she was actually asleep, and he apologizes for waking her. As part of his apology, he pleads that she return to sleep and leave everything to him until dinner. He is about to leave after that, but she stops him by firmly holding onto his hand and timidly asking if he is mad at her. She reacted harshly in the carriage, but since he loves to hear about her, she thinks it's best she opens up about the way she reacted. According to Miesa, her mother was from South Halrite. The tarts reminded her of her late mother and she apologizes, but he is cool with it. Sure, he knew her mother. She was the third and last wife of the late queen, but he didn't know she was from Halrite. He remembers the woman as a person from a humble background, unlike her co-wives. She had the perfect village to palace story, giving birth to Miesa shortly after the marriage. The only problem was that the king died not too long after the union and she was left stranded. Following the death of her husband, Miesa's mother lived quietly in Celia Palace with her newborn. Everything was seemingly good, until Vermalik grew up and went on a killing spree, wiping out the Salachisi and more. His rash act left next to no information about the third queen, so Eric wants to know if she hates the region because of what happened to her mother. She confirms that he is right and he apologizes, admitting he made a mistake. To prevent any more in future, he asks her to tell him more about herself, her likes, dislikes, and more. He believes that sharing these things with him will benefit her as well and help to avoid unnecessary issues. She agrees and assumes that's the end of their chat, but it isn't. She still hasn't explained what happened to her mood at the carriage. He wants to know why she was angry suddenly. It's a simple case of ask and you shall receive, yet she looks for a way to dodge the question. Writing off the switch is nothing. He wishes to press on though, but she starts pretending to be asleep. Cute. As payback, he pinches her nose, but still lets her continue her act. I mean, he didn't expect her to drop her guard around him so soon. The fact that she has is all right, making it cool even if she hasn't fully opened up. He is fine with her, truly, but one thing bothers him, the way Miesa tends to avoid things. For instance, she dodges memories. Now he guesses some are deep within her, so deep that she isn't even aware of them. If he is right, then her reaction in the carriage could be a sign. Growing up in the battlefield, Eric knows a thing or two about trauma. He saw many survivors and even more dead, with some of the survivors running mad because of the things they experienced in the front lines. Miesa has been through a lot, that he knows, but she has been so composed and sometimes shameless, so shameless that he ignored it, but maybe her strength is fading. And the memories and emotions that have been festering for so long will explode one day. If that happens, it'll definitely be lethal, so it's up to him to be by her side in the meantime. Eric knows that and flawlessly handles his roles. Several days later, after a wonderful meal, Eric tucks Miesa in bed while they discuss dinner. According to the couple, it was grand. They praise the chef for the meal, but then things go quiet and Miesa starts to give Eric the eyes. Unaware of what they mean, he plants a kiss on her forehead, thinking about how, although they have been talking since the incident, it has been irrelevant topics throughout. Continuing with the irrelevant topics is Miesa, talking about the weather. It didn't please her today, because it stopped her from playing in the garden longer than she would have. He apologizes for that with words and a few kisses, knowing fully well that her mind is troubled and he has no idea how to calm it. Things are already awkward as it is, but Miesa makes it more disturbing by asking if that's all for the night. What does she mean? He has no idea, as the initial attraction to the opposite gender, girl him, is more confusing than anything. Eager to know about what happened that day, he asks her if she had anything else to say, hoping she'll open up, since the topics she is discussing with him right now are topics he thinks she can discuss with anyone else. From the look in her eyes after that statement, he pulls back, thinking about how, no matter what she does or how she reacts, whether violent or not, it is his responsibility to protect and take care of her. He writes off the reactions he can understand, but for the ones he can't, he doesn't know how to handle them. They are beyond his control, and because of that, he usually draws an invisible line, because he doesn't know where pushing her will lead them to. Anyways, he plans to call it a night, when she hinders his plan by saying she doesn't know what to discuss with anyone else, or what kind of discussion to have in this situation. Moreover, he is the only one she can discuss with. With those words, although she stammered most of the time, it made him feel foolish. To react the way he did to someone in her shoes is very unwise, he knows, so he cancels his original plans and asks if she is comfortable with them talking about her last outing. He is sure something happened that day, and because she didn't want to explain, he decided not to press further. He urges her to speak up now because keeping it in is unhealthy and it'll leave her struggling with confused and complex emotions. He wants to believe that her not being able to hide her emotions from him is a good sign. After all, she hid emotions perfectly from others, but not him. Moved by his words, she summons up courage to ask him why he is so kind to her. His alleged reason is that she is a member of their family. Them being family, to him, means she can lean on him or unburden herself to him at any time. Everything is fine with them, but Eric wants two more things from her. One is loyalty, and the other is that they are to remember that they are on the same side. He is her, and she is him. That's how he wants her to see it, and she is fine with that, taking note of the fact that they are holding each other's leashes. Eric thinks differently, though, guessing that their definitions of family may not align. But he hopes one day they do. With that, he calls it a night and she goes to sleep in his arms. This hasn't happened in a long time, so it means so much to her. She can tell his explanation is sincere. Also, his outward kindness isn't just for show. He seems like a nice person, so she wants to think he is until proven wrong. It was a wonderful night for the couple, if you ask me, and the morning starts off well, as the couple plan to head into town again with Gela. Seeing them off is Edie and Thaliessa, but once they set off, Edie starts to let out. She doesn't think it's safe to have a woman like Gela with Eric and his wife. She tries to act scared, indirectly suggesting he might fall into some sort of temptation, so they should replace her with another maid, but his mother brushes it off. She knows her son well and is sure his relationship with the lady doctor is far from romantic. That aside, because he has a wife, the chances of him cheating are non-existent. Added to that, Mesa has gained weight, looking more pretty and lovely than she did when she came to them, although she is still quite skinny. Because of that, she orders Edie to do some digging and find out what Miesa loves to eat. She knows she digs butter, and wants Edie to discover every other thing. With no option, the head maid accepts the task, but deep down she is livid. Later that night, Eric gets to work, accessing documents reports he got from his sources. They inform him that Lady Malachis visited the pawn shop earlier in the day, but for most of the time of their surveillance, she has been silent. He worries that she might already be planning something, plus he has the problems of the Crispins being silent too. He is upset that he can't guess their next move when Miesa comes into his study and takes his attention. With the few minutes he has on her, he points out that she seems uncomfortable sleeping and invites her to sit on his lap if she wants. Shockingly, she refuses, wanting to speak from the entrance. Once granted the permission to do so, Miesa reveals that she no longer dislikes Eric. She disliked him before, but the feeling is gone. Looking bummed to hear this, Eric approaches her repeating what she said, but that scares her into thinking he is angry at her. He replies that he isn't, but is curious about why she disliked him before. He asks if the problem was his touch, but since it isn't, he gives her time to think about her response. He recalls that the last time he got a clear answer from her was when she asked him why he was being nice to her. That night he didn't rush her, so he decides not to rush her on this one. As expected, he gets one, but her focus is on his touch. She doesn't hate it, but finds it unnecessary. The second her answer drops, he breathes a sign of relief, because he can see that if he made a mistake with his touches, he might have earned her hate. Since that didn't happen, he pulls her close and declares that he understands her and is glad that although she doesn't like it, she doesn't dislike it. He is happy he informed her of this anyways, which makes her feel as glad as a kitten. Well, she has said what she wanted to say, so she turns her attention to the stack of documents on the table. She would like to know what he was doing, nevertheless, he can't really explain it and permits her to check it out. He is glad it was he who showed trust first. It led to this, but for safety's sake, he begs her not to tear the documents on the left, if at all she wants to rip some up. Luckily for him, Miesa assures him his documents are safe. There is no need to tear them to shreds now that her secret is out. With his permission, she gets to reading, doing it at a speed he has never seen before. From the way she is taking it all in, it's safe to say she is more comfortable reading than she is with speaking, and she shows that off by asking about the tale he put on Malachis. She also notices the talk about Salachis, a house she thought was meaningless now, but he believes they have some level of hope. The only remaining son of the house is illegitimate, but he looks to take on the family legacy. Truly, Miesa finds the documents interesting. So interesting that she succeeded in running through all of them and seeks permission to check more another time. He grants her the permission, no less, out of trust. Away from that, Miesa shows she felt lonely in bed by asking Eric if he is done with work. On hearing he isn't, she eagerly asks for permission to rest on his lap while he continues, and he agrees. The man expects to work with her around, but she gets touchy, wanting intimacy and trying to get it with an act. Her attempt fails, nevertheless. No surprise there. Even after she admits she is sure she really liked him. From her, he demands the truth, wanting to know what she has been thinking while she was alone. Miesa replies that she only shared a realization and hoped to get the response he promised her some time ago. Defeated by his own words, Eric caves in and kisses her. She reciprocates, no surprise there, after which he asks her if there is another reason why she came. She replies that there is. She is doing this to save him, reminding him of the hassle they faced at the palace. She is certain that if he keeps avoiding this, Vermalik will come after him, but he thinks otherwise. Because the Emperor let them go last time, he knows he will not punish them again for the same reason. Why? She asks, and he replies that his ego will keep them safe. Remember, he wanted to punish them, but they acted their way out of it, so he can't punish them again for the same thing. If he does, then he'll be indirectly admitting his previous judgment was wrong. He is too proud to let that happen. Miesa is astonished. She can now see the reason why he was so calm about them not consummating. She can see that it was only her worrying, and with that settled, he asks if that'll be all. He has to get back to work, remember? But she stops him again, harboring the fear of Vermalik finding another reason to end Eric's life. If that happens, she'll get married off to someone else, and she is sure that'll not be as good as this marriage. That being said, she reaches for his robe and exposes his physique. She has to confirm if he is ripped, wanting to continue while facing thoughts of Eric dying and her not even getting remarried, but forced to face the rest of her life in one of the palaces, alone. As the thoughts grow, Misa worries that she might be feeling this way because she bared the weight of them not getting serious on her own, or maybe she is feeling this way because he keeps doing pointless things. Anyway, he is fed up with what she is doing and wants to stop her. But she stops him, demanding to know if there must be a reason for intimacy. This is actually one of the few times when she is angry at him unintentionally, for his defiance. To make things clear to her, she demands to know if he finds her unattractive. If that's the case, she advises him to ignore it and get down with her regardless. For someone who promised herself she'd only wear smiles in Eric's presence, Miesa scolds herself for expressing what she calls useless emotions. Fed up with the tantrum she is throwing, Eric decides to abandon work and show her that he doesn't think she is unattractive. Even after he seems to be succumbing to her attempts, Miesa reminds herself that she is thin and filled with scars. Even she doesn't approve of her body. Plus, people said he was handsome, so she writes herself off as not good enough. She thinks appearance matters in this thing, but he indirectly declares it doesn't, by accepting her scars. He has some of his own. To relieve her, he runs her through some of his scars and how they were caused, unaware that she is focused on his physique again. After his tour, though, he asks if she approves of his build, and she confesses she does. But her reaction during the confession didn't look genuine. He still went on regardless, and they spent quality time together, even though he admits she doesn't intend to go as far as she desires yet. He thinks this isn't the right time yet. When it is, he'll let her know. Until then, he advises her not to be surprised at whatever he does. She affirms she wouldn't, but soon regrets it. In a good way. Yes, they didn't get to baby making, but the night was wholesome for them both. Like the night, nonetheless, the morning doesn't disappoint, breaking with warm sun, chirping birds, and Eric's spies at his office. Explaining better what they saw, they include that Malachi's left the pawn shop and put something in her pocket, but it was too small for the blonde spy to see what it was. What he was sure of, though, was that she returned to the mansion alone, before heading back to the pawn shop to join her friend. He explains that it was all in the document he sent through the butler, but although our boy seemed too busy to read it all, he nods that he did, meaning he did. Anyways, they continue. This time, it's the black-haired spy. He states that after sunset, he noticed a hired carriage pull up at the same pawn shop and an old woman alight. Diligently, he kept an eye on her until she entered the store. When she left, it wasn't by her will. The owner of the pawn shop kicked her out, while she argued lengthily about a brooch she sold to him. She left afterwards, nothing special there, but that didn't stop him from tailing her to her home to get her address. He submits the address to Eric. It's a small house on the outskirts, an address he has seen before. He just can't place a finger on where he saw it from, until he does. Leaving him with one more thing, proving the connection between Crispin, the palace maids, the old woman, and in a strange truth of events, his father's mistress. Since he can't establish their connection right now, he continues with his day, and by afternoon, he returns to Miesa's side. He meets Gela reading to her. Kindly, he grants her the rest of the day off, but she still lingers around, until he asks what's up. For some reason, she asks him if he'll be going out with Miesa today. His reply is loaded with uncertainty, but he wants to know why she is asking, which she reveals, and it's the palace maids. They stopped by a moment ago to check on Miesa and found her in a condition that showed their night was steamy. She visibly didn't approve of it, but the maids saw nothing wrong with a couple getting down. To them, it was good news, but that wasn't what their interests were on. Their focus was Gela. Malachi's made that clear when she asked if she was accompanying them out later in the day. Agitated by the question, Gela basically gave them the go-ahead to go to Eric to ask if there was a planned outing, because only he knew for sure. Even after hearing that, they didn't back down. Instead, they switched gears by stating that Miesa must be loving the outings since the fresh air seems to be improving her complexion. They did more, but this is the lot she reveals to him now, along with her suspicion that they were testing her, which is suspicious. Eric, taking this information, thinks their attitude looked a lot like a trap, meaning they were really planning something. She doesn't know anything about the extra eyes on Malachi's, and he doesn't tell her straight up, but he does talk about them taking the bait to an extent. Just in case, he hands her a special dagger. One Cullen will show her how to wear, so she'll have it on at all times. Concerning what she'll do when she leaves here, Eric instructs Gela to go about her day like she usually would, only this time he'll have Cullen with her at a distance. It's for her safety. She claims to understand that. Then he moves to the next step of his plan, actually going out with Miesa. Unlike other times, nevertheless, he helps her put on a bulletproof vest for protection. Although they'll have nights with them and he'll be by her side throughout, he thinks this measure is key because it'll help him rest easy while they are out. Right now, Misa is nervous to the core. She can't even look Eric in the eye because of it, yet she asks him if the vest will protect her from knives and axes. He can't believe she just asked something so terrifying and wants to know why, but since she doesn't look eager to respond, he goes on to answer the question, assuring her that the vest can protect her from knives and whips, but not axes. Throughout the time, Miesa looks gloomy, putting on her dress moodily and then asking him to help her with the bib the maids made for her. She wants to wear it out, but he can't understand why. He has seen her wear it a few times, so he suspects she might have taken interest in dressing up. In any case, she looks stunning now, leaving him tongue-tied until he buffs up and tells her he doesn't know how to tie it on her properly. Still, he is willing to try his best and does, not promising the best, but hoping that all this preparation will be a waste of time. He doesn't look forward to them facing any confrontation, and throughout their outing together, it looks like they won't get any. Everything was peaceful to them, but not Gela, who shows up battered and bruised, demanding for hazard pay, when it was time for them to get her and head back. Concerned, he asks the knight if she was hurt, but she claims she is fine, as the part of her body that took the most damage was her heart because of Cullen Imani's. She is aware Cullen and his brother hate being called by their surname because it sounds unpleasant. Some members of the Shidate Principality made that mistake and paid for it, so her calling that name boldly shows how offended she is. He wants to hear why, though, and she takes us 3 hours back when her stakeout began. Like other days, she went about her business, first checking some herbs out, then she got snacks during her stroll to the bookstore, munching them on her way there. Everything seemed fine, but then a few meters to the store, she ran into a pickpocket who snagged her bag of coins and had her chase him into a dark alley. On getting there, she saw he wasn't alone and realized she had just fallen for the oldest trick in the book, even though all her opponents looked weak and frail, rounding it up with the worst teeth and breathe. Eric isn't pleased with this part of the story and gets her to skip to the important part, which she does rushing to the part where she learned that they wanted to kidnap her, not hurt her at the spot. Since she was a woman, they downplayed her strength and got handled thoroughly. Now that she thinks about it, she thinks it'll have been better to quietly follow the hoodlums and see who their benefactor was and where their hideout was located. Still, Eric praises her efforts regardless, allowing her to continue her story and describe how she noticed she was handling her opponents one by one. At some point, she looked back to see why, and there Cullen was. He had restrained 2 and tossed 1 to her to handle. He had been doing that from the start, and she was so shocked that she slacked for a second and got cut. Fortunately for her, she got a foot back fast and kept handling opponents while listening to Cullen murmur various numbers. He shuffled from numbers about 17 and kept counting down the longer it took her to handle the enemy, instead of helping her. Eric can tell the numbers were his way of comparing her skills to his at the age behind each number he mentioned. To be compared to Cullen at age 16, he thinks that's a good thing. Continuing with the story, still pained, Gela reveals that she is annoyed that after they handled all the enemies, he was bold enough to ask her why she carried a dagger when she wasn't going to use it. Luckily for her, she quickly told him she planned to use it for interrogating the hoodlums. She describes what she did during the interrogation, but that makes Eric worry about Miesa. He thinks the details are too gory for her, only to find her giggling. Seeing that it doesn't startle her, he permits Gela to continue, and she does, revealing Cullen found out the men were rejects from the Thieves Guild, making them disposable. In other news, they didn't know who hired them. They did what they did for the money. They confess that the plan was to take Gela captive, keep her, and try 1 or 2 things before delivering her back to the estate pregnant. He is glad she didn't get captured, but also is able to guess who the benefactor is, although he doesn't spill. In any case, that's okay with Gela. All she wants to know is if there is hazard pay for her back-breaking effort. Eric replies that this isn't something money can solve, and she thinks he is talking about her getting her pound of flesh later. If that's the case, she doesn't want that. She has already had her revenge, she claims. That's when he shocks her by offering to get her the blacksmith shop back home. Her father had a competitor who was relentless, but he assured her he could get it for her. Overjoyed, thanks him, leaves and plans to head out with Cullen. She'll be at the mansion tomorrow, though, and he is fine with that. As soon as they are alone, the couple get chatty. There is a lot to discuss after all. Firstly, he agrees their plan was vile, and their ultimate plan was to get Gela pregnant and frame it on him to ruin his reputation. Miesa then brings up the part where Gela said the hoodlums called her Eric's lover, but he is more concerned about her and how she feels after hearing such a violent story. He forgot she had a gory past. Well, she reminds him by stating that she saw blood first when she was a lot younger. That day, she was so scared that it kept appearing in her dreams, but later on, she got used to it. Her early life was filled with bodies. Bodies, courtesy of Vermalic. And she is so troubled that she feared she'd start laughing loudly because of Gela's story. That's what she did when she was 12 and had to sleep on a pile of late relatives. It was easier for her then. Everyone thought she was crazy. Even so, 2 years ago, the maids thought she was coming back to her senses. By then, most of her relatives had been cut off, disallowing her from sleeping around bodies. She was forced to come up with some new tricks. To think she experienced this growing up and aced it eventually, making those who suspected her to once again believe she was crazy. It's a lot, Eric knows, finding it strange that she can casually talk about this. Her bravery makes him wonder why she is afraid of birds, the chapel, and thunder. To be on the safe side, he straight up asks her if there is anything she is afraid of or dislikes. She withdraws, showing she isn't comfortable talking about this. He pulls back as well, waiting, after which he asks why she doesn't kike talking about her past. It's not just the bad memories, but the good too. According to Miesa, it's all a big secret, meaning he'll have to pay a price to get it. Finishing what they started last night, she thinks that's enough payment.